XRF555A, and XLX212 Alpha. This is a technical net dedicated to D-Star and open source digital modes. Using a round-table format, we encourage discussion of topics of interest involving D-Star, including questions and answers, offering expertise, and examining various aspects of open source digital communications. Everyone is welcome to participate. This roundtable is a group effort, so to join a discussion, start a topic, or ask a question, key up when I call for stations. Please remember to not quick key or tailgate. I will pause regularly to let you key up, and I ask that participating stations do the same. We don't take formal check-ins or do a roll call to give us more time to talk D-Star. But you are welcome to check in, to say hello, and let everyone know what's new with you and your D-Star station. A couple of reminders. If you lose audio, please just wait. Audio will usually resume in a few moments. We ask the stations not key down and start their chunking to check their connection or to start yelling at me. There may be stations talking during your audio loss, so please be patient and wait for the audio to return. Now, if there is a network outage and you were transmitting at the time, I will let you know where you left off, assuming that your connection is resumed, and then you can pick it up from there. Net control is online at Roundtable. That's all one word, roundtable.tech, T-E-C-H. There you'll find the forum's real-time chat feature called Shoutbox, and you can use that to communicate with me as well as to post information relevant to the topic at hand, such as links and quick notes. It is especially important to take the time, and it really doesn't take much time at all, to go to the chat box that we call the shout box. It's actually the shout box. It's a form of the chat box. In any event, using your call sign, you can quickly type in the URL or DNS or web location, whatever, that you'd like listeners to take a look at. You can even create a live link if you like, because if you look right above the text entry box, you'll see the ability to create a link right there so people can click on it and away they go. There's nothing worse than trying to give me either an email address or a DNS or URL or whatever web location, and then I copy it wrong, and then I'll have about 100 requests for repeats. Plus, it deprives those that listen to us on a recorded basis from participating in or getting that link. So a lot of people listen on the way to work, and they just don't have a notepad and a paper to write it down. So if I ask that you put your link in the shout box, please humor me and do so. It just takes a few moments, and that way everyone can go there and see what we're talking about, whether later on or during the course of this net. Again, our D-Star Roundtable forum board is at roundtable, all one word, .tech, T-E-C-H. Just type that into the address field of your favorite browser, and you'll be taken right to our D-Star Roundtable forum board. It's a great place to check out anyway, because at the top of the board, we've got a lot of information about this net. We have a current discussions folder, which is, quite frankly, you can't miss it. And there we have ongoing discussions of topics of current interest and follow-up. And then, of course, we have the shout box that people use to talk about what we're talking about, to post links and other things. So, if you like, go ahead and take a look at the forum board and nose around. You can start a thread or post a reply in one of the topic boards. You have to log in, but that is no big deal. It takes a few moments using your call sign. Nothing bad happens as a result of it, and we encourage people to take a look at it. It's up 24/7, and it's kind of fun sometimes to see what people are thinking. If you're listening to the podcast of this net, you can follow along with us on the Roundtable forum by looking at the shout box history, which is right above the general Roundtable discussion board. And if you're fortunate enough to have a modern podcast app, the Shoutbox History, which we collect at the end of the net and then paste it, we cut it actually in a way and paste it into the Shoutbox History. Anyway, that is downloaded automatically if you're using a fairly recent podcast app, and it's there for you to look at, and you don't even have to go back and find it online at our Roundtable forum board. Please also, if you like, take a look at the ways by which you can listen to a recorded version of this net. We are on Broadcastify as a live stream, and those that are premium members of Broadcastify can download from there files every 30 minutes. It creates a file, and you can download it. Most people know how to do that. And there's all kinds of ways that you can participate. A lot of people just record it. But in any event, if you weren't able to get all of it, or as some have said that they just aren't quite used to us starting at 7, that if you want to listen to the first part of the net, there's a couple places you can go and go fairly quickly. Check it out, Roundtable, all one word, .tech, T-E-C-H. First up on the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable is 60 seconds of D-Star Basics. And tonight on the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable, I keep trying to keep the discussion within 60 seconds. I fail at that job miserably most of the time, but I might be able to get it closer to it tonight. And we're talking about powering down your Raspberry Pi, a very basic concept, especially if your Raspberry Pi is part of your hotspot, or for that. All right, we're back, and I'd just like to not get into a collision with the doublers, and also I want to make sure that my audio is not lost to the various reflectors that form the part of what we call the XRF or D-Star constellation, because there are people that are listening on places other than XRF 002A where I'm transmitting, although I'm listening on 310A and I can move around a bit, but I hate to see it lost. And so I try to pause a little bit longer, especially once we get going. Select stations link up. Sometimes their audio path or the link commands get passed through. Some people just key up with their audio down. It happens. No big to do. Anyway, powering down your Raspberry Pi as far as 60 seconds of D-Star Basics. First, issue the shutdown command. Do not just rip the power cord, whether it's to a wall wart or some other 5-volt supply, or disconnected directly from the 12-volt power source of your mobile. Issue the shutdown command. Now, after that's been issued, you can unplug it at the wall outlet. You should not pull the jack out of the plug out of the power jack on the Raspberry Pi. That is a bad practice. That will typically scramble or make your D-Star image, your operating system image, unworkable. Look for the solid red LED. When you issue the shutdown command, you'll see the lights blink the LED, and then just before it's ready to be shut down, the red LED is pulsing or blinking. And when it becomes solid red, that means it's ready to be unplugged. And you can unplug it. Just take your time. The worst thing that can happen is to have your image destroyed, or to have it, for whatever reason, not working correctly. And if you're a smart person, you'll have a copy of that image saved to your desktop or other location, and you can just use an image burning app to, take that operating system image and burn it onto a new or the same, after formatting, the SD card or the micro SD card, and away you go. sometimes you have to go through the process of rebuilding the image, and depending upon the source of the image, be it the D-Star Commander, Maryland D-Star image, it still doesn't take all that long to rebuild it. But the whole idea is to avoid having your operating system image made. And that's 60 seconds or thereabouts of D-Star Basics. Now, if you have any objections to what I said, or you thought I misspoke, or you have some follow-up, or you have another suggestion, that's fine. We'll take that. You can key up as we progress into the participation part of this net. I don't take offense to being criticized or being corrected. I'd rather get out the right information, that is factual stuff, and not do guesses. We're not into alternate facts here. We want the truth, the factual stuff put out. So sometimes people have a different idea about things, and that's fine. That leads to a discussion, and we're happy to entertain it. And that goes for anything you hear on the net, because not everybody can be right. Sometimes people can be wrong. Anyway, time now for announcements. These are things about this D-Star system you have, maybe an update or something new that's going on with you and your system. It could be a hand event, it could be a weekend get-together, could be a ham conference, could be a bunch of guys singing D-Star songs around the campfire. And or it could just be a family gathering in which somebody has a D-Star radio and you're opening it up to others to come. But you get the idea of what announcements are. We'll take them now. Stations, please key up.
W6KDM.
I have WB5EKU and W6KD. First, we say hello to Don, WB5EKU. Go ahead.
N6HKH and the net. This is WB5EKU. Good evening, everyone. This isn't strictly D-Star related. I just wanted to make an announcement that the K6PUW repeater will now be linked to a Yaesu reflector. The Yaesu side it is, don't forget, this is a multi-mode, it is not a cross-mode repeater. There is a brand new Yaesu Fusion reflector. It is YSF002. And anyone that needs to link to that, it is YSF002.dstar.club. Box. This is up on the shout box right now. This is a test of the Yaesu reflector. Basic operation is just like a D-Star repeater. You connect to it and talk through it, and you talk to other stations. So that's my announcement, Mike. Sorry it's not D-Star, but it's in with being with the K6PUW wide area coverage repeater. N6HKH, WB5EKU.
Oh, no need to apologize, Don. This is, even though our focus is D-Star, we can entertain other digital modes, particularly open source ones, and I realize that C4FM, as far as Yaesu Fusion goes, is not particularly open if at all. But the point is that you've got an MMDVM-based multi-mode repeater, and announcing that you've added a Fusion repeater to it, or reflector, to it, is an important announcement, and certainly appropriate because it's news. And that's what announcements are all about. Thanks, Don. Good luck with that. Let us know next week, assuming that somebody has one of the C4FM radios, how it works. W6KD, welcome. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mike. Yeah, there's a new Raspberry Pi in the world now, the Raspberry Pi Zero W. For those of you familiar with the Raspberry Pi Zero, it's the small format Raspberry Pi. Looks about the size of a pack of gum, maybe a little wider. It doesn't have GPIO pin header, and what makes this one maybe interesting for hotspot use is that it has a onboard Wi-Fi device on it. That's the principal difference between it and the original Raspberry Pi Zero. So it's got it uses the same RF chip for the onboard Wi-Fi, but it has a integrated cavity antenna that's actually printed into the circuit board, which looks to be a much better antenna than the little surface-mounted chip that's used on the Raspberry Pi 3. It's the same RF devices on the Raspberry Pi 3, but it's a different antenna. So anyway, I haven't got my hands on one yet, but all indications are the device should work okay with probably most of the images that are out there, so now you can use it comes with 2 micro USB connectors, as did the original, but you no longer have to actually wire into the GPIO pad. You don't have to solder wires to get power to the Raspberry Pi Zero now, because you can use one power connector, one micro USB for power. The second one will go to a USB based hotspot device, whether that be a DVAP or an Arduino mounted DV Mega. Either one should work, and then you get your Wi-Fi connection through the onboard Wi-Fi. So it's a much less tricky prospect. It looks like it still involves wires and stuff. It's still not as compact a package as a regular Raspberry Pi 3 with a DV Mega, mated on top of it. But it's another option out there. So it's double the price of the original Raspberry Pi Zero. The Zeros were selling for $5, which made them fairly attractive, and these sell for $10, and so they're still pretty attractive. You can't go wrong with $10 to play around with one. So anyway, that's no reason. Anyway, that's the new gadget on the street. And timing-wise, I don't know if that's their annual new Raspberry Pi, or if a Raspberry Pi 4 is in the weeds or something. They don't usually pre-announce. It just shows up. The last couple have been like that. The Raspberry Pi 2 and 3 just appeared. There was no fanfare, no pre-announcement. It just dropped out of the sky. So we're about, timing-wise, it may happen that a Raspberry Pi 4 shows up, but so far no hard and fast rumors to that regard. And with that, I'll send it back to W6Katie.
Well, that is what I call an announcement. A new Raspberry Pi. I just was taking a quick look at it online because I hadn't heard anything about it until just now, and wow. Now, I assume, I see the W means wireless, and its actual spelling is Raspberry Pi Zero, Z-E-R-O, Z-E-R-O. That is, the number 0 is spelled out, and then wireless. And, wow, 1 gigahertz single-core CPU, and still the same micro USB power and all the things that you talked about. Very cool. And I don't see anything about anyone selling it yet. Let me ask if anyone has any news on this. That is there an outlet, or that is a vendor where you can buy it from? Does anyone have one? Many of the comments are $10, just 10 freaking bucks. Sell me 20 kind of a thing. And there's, wow, look at that case. Pretty cool. Well, instead of me relating what I'm looking at on screen, let's hear from stations who might have one in hand or have check it out or have it on order or know anything further, please key up.
W6KDM.
W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, the local micro center here, local to me anyway, which is in Denver, about 60 miles north of me, actually has them, and they'll sell you one for $10, but if you want more than one, they hook you on the price. But they were advertising in stock as of about 3 or 4 days ago. So yeah, they're out in the world. I don't know if you can get them from the standard mail order places yet. But yeah, it's like most Raspberry Pi releases. When they tell you about it, it's already on the street.
All right, very cool. And I just took a quick look at MCM, which is actually a corporate cousin of the manufacturer and developer of the Raspberry Pi in England. And they usually are the first to get them, but I don't see anything here. But then that doesn't mean that they haven't already announced it on a different flyer. But I just took a quick look. Very cool. Anyone have any comments, thoughts, follow-up information on the Raspberry Pi Zero Wireless, Zero W, please key up.
A0R.
A0RX, Gary. I was going to congratulate you on being with us, but you're always with us. So, go ahead.
I try to be a practicing supporter of D-Star. I love it. And anyway, thank you. Just looking at the Zero W, this is kind of cool, but I'm wondering if you can take this this board, and it has the GPIO pin ports to one side there. I'm wondering if you can. I'm just wondering if you can take a DV Mega board and solder in or do a few ports from the pin 1 and 0 there, or 1 and 2 on the looks like 40 plus GPIO pin port. If you could take and mount a DV Mega to this and make it work just like the Pi 3 there, that would be kind of cool. Kind of a cool project. It'd be a little bit smaller if you did it that way, but of course you have that. The DV Mega board would sit on top of it. It looks like it'd be wider than the Zero W there. So just wondering, I don't know that, but I'm wondering if you can, if you forged ahead and made yourself, the first 8 pins or so compatible to what we do with a DV Mega, if you could make this thing work with that. I just don't know. I'm just asking anybody that knows. A0RX.
W6.
Well, aside from taking a look at the photos that are online of it, I guess somebody can take a guess. WA7KTM and W6KD are recognized. First, over to Dan, WA7KTM. Go ahead.
This WA7KTM, I didn't do anything. It must have been, I imagine something going on with my Raspberry Pi or something. I didn't key.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And look, inadvertent key up's a device that has a mind of its own. If you have a Pi that just transmits despite the threats you've issued to it to not do so, just key up and let me know. I'll take you off the list. No problem. So it sounds like maybe you're a candidate for a new Pi. Hey, I wonder what that might be. W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, regarding Gary's question about using a Pi Zero with DV Mega. The Pi Zero actually has a GPIO. It has the GPIO connections, but it doesn't have pins. So what you have is a row of gold-lined holes in the board, and you can certainly take a you can find at most electronic shops a standard pin header to put in there. You can cut it down to however many pins you need, just a double row pin header, and solder it into the board. A couple of drawbacks, a couple of things that make that a less than high probability of success. First of all is that, as Gary sort of mentioned, the physical size of the board doesn't match up with the DV Mega, so it's going to be awkward physically because the DV Mega, fits down on a regular Raspberry Pi's GPIO pin header, and using a 10 millimeter nylon standoff, it mates to and mounts reasonably securely in a Raspberry Pi case, and is easily usable that way. But the most important thing, and I haven't researched this, but I can tell you with the Raspberry Pi 3, that I had to put a overlay in to redirect the original UART, the Universal Asynchronous Receiver Transmitter chip, from the onboard Bluetooth Wi-Fi back over to the GPIO pin. What they did, let me change hands real quick. What they did when they came out with the Pi 3, which is the first one with integrated onboard Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, is they took the hardware UART and they mapped it over to the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth, and they created in software a soft UART, if you will, that then handled the two GPIO pins that used to have a physical UART attached to them. That software UART is not nearly as stable. In fact, it's not stable enough in many cases to support the DV Mega. And what happens is you end up with the thing locking up or going to sleep or rebooting or who knows what else it might do because the UART's not stable, because it's dependent on what's running on the computer as to whether or not it runs reliably, at its designated clock speed, and many times it does not. So what I had to do to make the DV Mega workable with the Raspberry Pi 3 was write an overlay that changes that UART mapping back to the original hardware UART, and you have to disable the onboard Wi-Fi and Bluetooth if you want to use a DV Mega on a Raspberry Pi 3. So I would guess that something like that is also in play with the Raspberry Pi Zero W because, it's even more diminutive than the other one, and anyway, it would bear some research to see what was being done there, and I would guess, that they're doing the same thing. So just plug and play is very unlikely, I would say. Not to mention, not really. I don't know, it doesn't look very advisable to me. If I were going to want to use a DV Mega with one of these boards, I would use the Arduino-based DV Mega that mates to an Arduino Uno or Duo, and then use a USB cable between the Raspberry Pi Zero and the DV Mega that way. That would be to me, that seems to be a better solution. But anyway, back to that, W610.
All right, thank you, Bob. Stations with questions, issues, statements, comments, thoughtful reflection on a device that I guess is in nobody's hands yet, but should be very soon on the Raspberry Pi Zero Wireless. Please key up. All right, as you've seen or heard, I'm sure there's plenty of websites that have good information. Some of these blogs, you click to save them and to your desktop, and it's 147 pages. But perhaps there's a couple of Well, there's always the Raspberry Pi website, and perhaps somebody can find that, maybe find the page for the Raspberry Pi Zero Wireless, and post that on the shop box as a link, and that would be greatly appreciated so we can all check it out, because it looks like not a lot of us knew about it, but of course Bob was right on top of things, as we fully expect him to do for the pay he receives. All right, we're still in announcements. Stations with announcements, please key up now.
A0.
A0, RX, go ahead.
Well, just a comment. I thought you were making slightly more pay grade than Bob now because of your earlier amount of hours you got to put in here. But just a question.
Yeah, no, actually Bob and I earn about the same for the work we do on the round table, and it shouldn't take too much brain power to guess how much that is. I think you said you had a question, or you cut yourself off, I'm not sure. So, Gary, go ahead with your announcement, or was that it? I'm just not sure. Go ahead.
No, just making a kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke there, and hopefully not offending anybody here in the TechNet. But yeah, back to you, and thank you. A0RX.
Hey, jokes are always acceptable. All right, any other announcements? Please key up now. All right, nothing seen or heard. So I noticed that the station was kind enough to follow up on an issue that was brought up by AA0RX, oddly, and I think it was last week, and we had no replies. We had a lot of good guesses regarding the transmit history on using the new Kenwood V-Star radio. And there was a question as to whether you could get it, and we were, you know, we were nice. Let me back up here. Let me find what I'm talking about before I start talking. N1PEB, who's fairly new to the Roundtable Forum Board, was kind enough to answer Gary's question regarding how to get transmit history, and posted in the current discussions box, which is a great place to put it, and I appreciate his use of that. And you'll find the current discussion box at the very top of the V-Star Roundtable Forum at roundtable.tech, roundtable is all one word, .tech. How to you press the function key and then the digital mode key, and you guys can read how to go about doing that, and then you'll find an option called RE-TX. And then he was kind enough to post 2 photos showing the very cool screen on the Kenwood. And I suggest everybody take a look at it, because at the second photo, guess what? There is a call history, including the UR, R1, R2, his call, the frequency, and for transmit history. And then the front screen shows the menu. Anyway, I wanted to bring that to everybody's attention, and let me just see if anyone, having read that or having tried to put this to use and found that it actually, throws the antenna off and drops the battery out by executing that menu function item, please key up and let us know. Do so now.
A0.
A0RX, go ahead.
Yeah, A0RX returning. I did I re-looked at what I looked at before and followed N1PEB's advice. But prior to doing that, I had already looked at that because I saw that that section in there for the retransmit history. However, on my Kenwood 74 Alpha, when I put the retransmit history, there is no history there. And so I followed his advice, and I've also looked at the manual at page 16.6, and it does not have any data in there. It says no data. So I'm convinced that it's either one of two things. It's either because I don't have a SD card in the radio, and therefore there's no place to save that information, but I have not seen any other buttons to push, so to speak, to start saving that information in the Kenwood. And then, or I have a firmware problem because I got my Kenwood 74 Alpha out of the box, and I have not seen anything in there other than maybe I have the older firmware version that does not save it to the radio's memory. But I assure you, I followed N1PED's advice, and before I even looked at that or asked the question, I already meticulously went through the manual and saw the retransmit, and in that case, that's when I determined I did not have a transmit history. I assure you, when I transmit my radio, it doesn't save that information. And therefore, I had the issue, and therefore I asked the net. So this is really, it looks great, but my radio is not acting as though N1 PEDs. Maybe my firmware is bad, or I just have to get an SD card, and the radio does not automatically save that in its internal memory, and I need that extra SD card, and maybe then it will work fine. Right now, as of now, I do not have a transmit history whatsoever in my Kenwood 74A.
All right, with that in mind, is there someone that can help out on this? If N1PEB, who seems to be on top of this, has any thoughts, if he's with us tonight, I'd also ask that he key up, but I can't force anybody to do anything, and I haven't taken a look to see who's connected. It's just been a little bit too soon in the net, but in any event, anyone have any thoughts, offers of help, or should we just tell AA0RX to stop away and discuss? Stations, please key up. Well, nothing seen or heard, so Gary, I guess you're on your own. Have you been able to find a RX history where it displays a list of stations heard by the radio from whatever source? Well, it would be the reflector, but I mean, as you change repeaters, reflectors, even simplex, that history should continue to, accumulate for its maximum memory capability or the number of memory slots it takes up. I mean, that's how the ICOMs work. Have you been able to find that capability in your D74 AA0RX? Go ahead.
AA0RX returning. Yes, I have in the Kenwood 74A. The interesting thing is, I'm not on it right now. I have it with the power off now, currently, in case for backup for this radio. But long story short, I have seen a receive history, and the funny thing is, I can go to receive history, and I get everybody's call sign. Like for instance, on this net, everybody that keys up, if I were on the 74 Alpha and it was receiving, it says everybody's call sign, but it does not receive. It does not say the transmit history. The transmit history is the issue, not the receive history, and it does not save a receive history for reflectors because nobody's keying up reflectors. They're just coming in as a call sign. So the radio does save the call signs. For instance, your call sign at N1PEB, if you keyed up, or W6KD or anybody else, it would say that in receive history. But it does not save that in the transmit history, if that makes any sense. It's very strange, very convoluted, I know, but the radio does not save, that I have seen, when I put in a reflector and key up to hook to, say, the 2 alpha, it doesn't save XRF002 alpha, so I can readily go back. Now, I have found an issue that I have found that helps me is, luckily the 74 alpha has a keypad. Let this reset. The Kenwood 74 alpha has a keypad, thank God. And it trumps everything else out. Sorry to pardon the pun of the president, but all you have to do is push to talk and say, Bravo to Alpha. And it will link up, believe it or not, the Pi to this reflector. So it's very easy to get to a reflector. I found that out. But the whole impetus is if you actually input the data by using the encoder on top and putting the XRF002 alpha link and push to talk, it doesn't save that in the radio that I have seen yet. And I'm still looking for it. And that's my 2 cents. AA0RX.
All right. Anyone wish to add some change to AA0RX's pocket on this last transmission? We'll take you now. Please key up. AA0, well, first of all, there's no response except for the station asking the question. AA0RX, go ahead.
Well, I just want to add, I'm not going to say any call signs, and I'm not offended by anything that has happened, but I did receive an email in my QRZ logbook that stated that when I did state my original question for the 74 Alpha, nobody knew what I was talking about, as if everybody was confused as to what I was trying to get to, and therefore nobody had any comments. And maybe I'm not articulating this enough, but I think over time, we can get this thing worked out, and maybe a firmware upgrade, or maybe I'm looking at the radio upside down. But I still have not, as in the ICOM radio, as soon as I input XRF002 alpha link into the radio and trunk it, it takes me there, and then I go back to CQ, and I'm talking to you guys, and then it saves that information, so I can just encode it back to that and trunk it and always get back to the 2 alpha, even though it's not programmed into my radio. It's a very handy and a very convenient feature, and it could be likely that it's in the 74 alpha, but I haven't seen it yet, and I know that other people just use DKMF tones to get around the universe, and I hope I'm clarifying what I'm saying instead of making it more confusing. AA0RX.
No, I think you're clear. I mean, I haven't heard anybody key up and ask what in the heck is he talking about, which would be fine because Gary doesn't take offense, at least not much. And it could be that someone listening to a podcast of this net, as N1 PED did, and posted in the Shopbox or the current discussions folder. That would be the best place. That may very well be the result because there are a lot of D74 owners out there, and it could be that this is a problem of an owner's manual not being explicit, using language for its table of contents to describe something other than what you would find if you clicked on that link or went to that page. But somebody will sort it out, and frankly, if they have any questions about what you're talking about, they can post that in the shop box as well, in addition to keying up, but I think we got it. So, let me just see if anyone has anything, just to make sure that I haven't pushed anybody aside before we move forward. Stations key up, D74 users. Now. I never heard, and I taking a look at the shop, I think, getting from posting a great link to information about the Raspberry Pi Zero, and there was a side note to from W7 Flex to John, which I assume is W5 HKU, so be good start to the shop box. So, let's see. We covered that, and I don't see anything else right this moment on the shop box that we need to worry ourselves about, unless someone has a question about fusion reflectors and how they work with MMDVM. I mean, we're not going to run off into a technical discussion and, in the sense, start a C4FM net, but I did not, and I apologize to Don, I did not ask for stations with questions about this, albeit it's a local repeater and not something that can be accessed across the country around the world. But the reflector is, and if someone has anything about that, in fact, let's just stop right now. Anybody have any questions about anything you've heard thus far? Let's just do it that way. Please key up now. All right, nothing seen or heard. And one of the topics tonight that I wanted to get into was a follow-up to a discussion that we had on February 23rd concerning CCS7 and the auto disconnect feature. There were some other things we talked about, but during that specific roundtable, we were talking about, started out at least, concerning the CCS7 of the DV4 Mini, and a question that came up from, or brought up by K7REX concerning reflector disconnect, and there was a discussion that if it was incoming, you'd be unlinked. If you're connected to a reflector, that is, if you're receiving the CCS7 request for connection, that if the receiving station was connected to a reflector, that it would be unlinked automatically and then relinked upon issuing the CCS7 disconnect code, and this would be keepable on an IRC DDB gateway, not D+. So it's a feature of IRC DDB written in, assumably, by G4KLX. And I think, and this is what I wanted to also clarify, the discussion from several stations was that because the automatic gateway was built into it, it would auto disconnect on both stations, but that was not made particularly clear. That is, we know the receiving station would be disconnected. Everybody agreed on that, but there wasn't any particular statement that my notes reflected that the initiating station, if connected to a reflector or a repeater, would also automatically disconnect, assuming it's an IRC-DDB gateway. Now, we left that as it was. Haven't really heard anything new about that. In fact, you may recall VK4TUX provided an extensive discussion of it. But subsequently, there's a kind of a security vulnerability and some questions about this auto disconnect that has come to the fore. And that issue is a station connected to a reflector initiating a CCS7 connection where the auto disconnect does not work, but it's still under the same circumstances I just described. So I want to call for stations who would be willing to start this discussion, particularly ones that have had this problem, or if you know about it, or if you, find yourself in the unique position of knowing the answer. Let's take you now. Please key up.
WB5EKU.
All right, we got WB5EKU. Don, thanks for being the first to key up and starting this out. Go ahead.
Okay, it's KHWB5EKU. Okay, Dan and I, K7REX, had this conversation and ran a couple of tests a few days ago. And I don't know that I still fully understand it, but the way it looks now is if the station that is issuing the connect, the CCS7 connect, is also linked to a reflector. Upon connection, that reflector will not drop. Okay. As an example, if Mike, if you were on a X reflector, and I'm saying X reflector, it could be any reflector, but and I'm on an X reflector, and I issue a CCS7 connect to you. Upon the CCS7 connecting on your end, it will drop the connection to the X reflector. On my end, it does not drop the connection to the X reflector. Upon us canceling the connection, then you will automatically reconnect. That is what we found, and if somebody has found something different, I'd love to know that, because the tests that I've run seem to bear that out. WB5EKU.
Okay, Don, thanks for that. And that is exactly the issue, because where we left it, I was under the impression, at least, that whether the initiating station, or that is a sending station initiating, or the receiving station, the auto disconnect worked, and then the reconnection occurred. But we have had reports, and I guess that's the best way to describe it, of stations having their, otherwise, semi-private, I can't say it's private, it's not a cone of silence, but anyway, the discussion was being broadcast on a reflector. And this occurred in several instances, and I went back through my notes and I said, well, nobody keyed up to say during the roundtable a couple of weeks ago that the initiating station, if linked to a reflector or repeater, would be disconnected automatically by the G4KLX IRC-DDB. And as it turns out, that may not be the case. Thus, there's a vulnerability where if you believe you're saying something that should not be heard by anyone other than, or you'd be embarrassed by it, let's just put it that way. I mean, anything super secret should not be on amateur radio in any event, but still, something that was not intended for a wide listening audience on a reflector would be heard by everybody listening to a reflector, and especially in the X reflector business, there could be multiple reflectors linked together broadcasting your conversation until you, as the initiating station, disconnected it. And that is what we did not say was the case, or actually discuss it. And it's an important one, because it was the reason why a lot of people ran away from CCS4. So I would hope that maybe we could hear an explanation or get a definitive. If you're initiating the CCS7, you better manually unlink or be sure you're not connected to a reflector, because it's not going to do it automatically. Maybe somebody with knowledge can clean this up for us, and that would be kind of an oddity. Why have auto disconnect on one end but not the other? But it could be I just don't understand it. In any event, now this is cropped up in CCS7, and I have yet to have anybody issue such a warning, so that's why I thought it would be an appropriate topic. So now that I've treaded water a bit, let's see who can help us out or has an experience of this nature. Maybe there's a fix, maybe there isn't. Stations, please key up.
A0RX.
A0RX, go ahead.
I am, this is A0RX returning. I don't have an answer for you. I wish I did, but I do have a question for WB5EKU in regarding this multi-mode endeavor that he is on. I just have a question for him, if you don't mind.
Well, let's do this. Let's put that on hold, unless you have to run away. and see if we can start a discussion or further a discussion about the CCS7 non-disconnect, auto-disconnect vulnerability. And then we'll come back to you and your question for Don right afterwards. So, looking for stations that can help us in the right to understand or provide some correction to what I thought was a conclusive discussion a couple of weeks ago about CCS7 and auto-disconnect not working on the initiating station. Please key up. Well, nothing seen or heard. So has anyone had this happen to them, regardless of whether you can understand or explain the reason for it? You know, I am surprised given that CCS7, I mean, it's popular. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it certainly is used fairly often, and you'd think that this would have come to somebody's attention. I haven't seen anything in any of the Yahoo groups. That doesn't mean anything because I don't look at them all, but I haven't had anybody report that CCS7 is no different than CCS4 for the initiating station. You better check and make sure you're not linked because, you know, if you are, your conversation will go out over that reflector. And you know, a lot of people were embarrassed in the CCS4 era. So I just want to make sure that we've cleared the deck, so to speak, on this one before we progress. Stations, please key up. Well, nothing seen or heard, so perhaps, much like the Raspberry Pi Zero W, we'll see if we can't kick this one around next time. Perhaps someone can take a look at the rules and or talk to a station that knows far more about CCS7 than I do. So, AA0RX, assuming that Dawn has not gone into hiding, excuse me, that is WB5EKU, AA0RX, go ahead with your question.
N6HKHAA0RX, thank you. I'm just wondering, and it's not in jest that I say this at all, so I hope that your work in this MMDVM thing is not taken lightly. It's a lot of work and a lot of research on your behalf. But I'm just wondering, because I'm looking at Fusion, is there a way for Fusion or DMR or any of the other, we call it multiple modes, is there a way for the other HTs, such as a Yaesu or a DMR radio or BP25, is there a way for those radios to do a simple command like the ICOM or the Kenwood in terms of like a star 2 alpha or something simple like that, or a Bravo 2 alpha or whatever, to link the hotspot to the desired reflector? It's just something I don't know, and you must know something about this since you've worked with so many multiple modes and getting this tuned up. I'm just wondering, is this something that you can do, for instance, to hook to a fusion reflector with DTMF tones? Is that something that can be done, or is it just something unique to D-Star?
WB5EKU. Go ahead. Uh-oh. Well, I presumed too much. WB5EKU, Don, are you still with us? Well, I'm sorry to say that, you know, I just, again, I just assume that everybody gathers around their radio and takes their HT at least with it. Well, look, you know, who am I to say? If WB5EKU pops up, I'll I'll call on you to pose that question again and take it from there, because it's a fair one. So, at this point, let me just see. I just want to make sure that we haven't had a station key up and I didn't catch them. I don't think I miss anybody. I rarely do. Sometimes, most of the time, I catch stations that didn't think they keyed up. But if you keyed up and I did not acknowledge you, please key up again. Do so now. All right, good. Yeah, so we'll take the CCS7 voted, I guess, I hate to call it security, but it's the lack of auto-disconnect problem for initiating stations. We'll take that up next week. If for some reason somebody's listening on Broadcastify and just isn't home yet to get on the radio and wishes to talk about this topic, we'll certainly take you and deal with it then. So, let's see. Now, there was a question that came up by email to me concerning the port forwarding discussion that took place also a couple weeks ago. And there was an issue regarding, again, this goes to CCS7, I think, and is it necessary to open up any ports or do any port forwarding for D+ and DCS? That is it only necessary in order to enable CCS7 to forward port? I think it's 20,001. I'm not certain because it's not stated here. In D extra, and if someone would like to help us understand that, because the fewer ports we have open, the better off we are. And for that matter, perhaps a brief discussion about why there's no reason, depending upon the image that you're using with your Pi, as an example, or your hotspot. There's a lot of stuff on the net on the internet that says open all this up, and they just list a whole bunch of ports, and they include ports that would only be applicable if you were operating as a repeater or an IRCDDB gateway, and it would be unnecessary. So for the limited purpose of CCS7, is it just D extra? Is there any reason to open up port forwarding or plan for that in D+ and DCS? If we could get some help on this, I'd appreciate it. Stations, please key up.
WB5EKU.
WB5EKU, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, I think I was doubling with you. I answered A0RX's question when I let up on the push to talk. You went back to the other subject. So, hear any of my response to A0RX?
No, I'm sorry to say I did not. I didn't see you doubling with me. I saw no indication that you were in the vicinity of a radio, and that would be odd. But we have you now, and without belaboring this, unless you want to explore why it is that you were talking and I never saw you, and because usually, 99% of the time, even if a station keys up same time or during a transmission here, it shows up as a double, and I didn't see that. So sorry, Don. Try it again. WB5EKU. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't want to belabor any point here, so I'm going to say I can answer A0RX a little bit later on. There is a port to be open for CCS7. I have to look it up. I don't have it committed to memory right now, but there is a CCS7 port that has to be open. And A0RX, I will get back to you to answer your question in a little bit. And 6HKH WB5EKU.
I'm not sure what's happening here. So you want to come back, key up, and then answer his question later because that's what you want to do, and you're not doing this because you think that's what I want you to do you, Don? Go ahead.
You had moved over to another topic, and I don't want to interrupt that topic. You know, I'll let you keep that going on, and then I can always get back to A0RX, if that's acceptable.
Sure, I understand now. It sounded like, well, I had, to me, it sounded like something else was going on, and so never mind. All right, fair enough. So, stations who can help out with the CCS7 question regarding what ports must be opened, and for port forwarding, is there any reason to open up any ports for D plus and DCS, that is, the extra only, and the exact port that's required? That's what the station who's listening silently would like to know. Stations, please key up.
WB5EKU.
WB5EKU, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put this in the shout box also. For CCS, port is 30061. Port 30061.
All right, thank you. So, is that UDP, TCP? Is it inbound? The extra only? Does anyone know? That seems to be the genesis of the question. Or perhaps the question doesn't make any sense to anybody, and if so, you can key up and tell us why as well. If not, I'm not going to take this around much further. Stations, please key up. All right, nothing seen or heard, and that takes care of that. So, Don, if you like, now we're done with this topic that didn't go anywhere. And if you'd like to answer A0RX question, you may do so now. WB5EKU, go ahead.
Okay, one quick question. Did you hear my response about the port for CCS? Because something weird, I think, happened. I don't know if you heard that response.
I copied your response of port 30,061, but that's all I got. Go ahead.
Okay, that was it. And I just put that on the shout box also. In case anybody who needs to find it. Port 30061 for CCS. Let me reset here and I'll answer A0RX. Okay, A0RX WB5EKU. There is, depending upon which Yaesu radio you have, there is a way to DTMF to a. They don't call them reflectors; they call them rooms, to a room number in Fusion. There is some information online, and if you would like, I could either send you that a link to that information, or I could put it on the shout box if you would like. As far as DMR goes, I only have one DMR radio, and it's not a high-end radio. I have never been able to DTMF from one talk group to another with the radio. I have to actually change channels to get from one talk group to another. I have not found either one to be as flexible as D-Star is. I really like D-Star, I feel, was made for amateur radio, for hams. DMR comes out of commercial service. Yaesu is trying to, looks like they try to blend both worlds together. And I don't know how successful that is, but hey, they're out there and, to use. So, AA0RX, I hope I explained that as best as I could. WB5EKU.
AA0RX, go ahead. Myself, the hams want to engage in the digital voice modes. And so that's really why I asked the question. And I don't want you to ever feel like I'm trying to put you on the spot specifically. I'm just saying that, it is pertinent to know how effortless and easy it can be to, it's a very nice feature that I've rediscovered here. The old DCMF tones, like Echolink, or like, phone patching. When you can push to talk and push 2 or 3 text tones and get your radio to link to a reflector, that's really a sweet trick there for me personally. And I think that's, it should be expressed. So, like I said, but I really appreciate what you're doing, and I know you've got a really cool repeater that does multi-mode out there. And other than that, I don't know much about you, but I just want you to know that I'm not picking on you or anything, or saying this in jest. I just want to reiterate and find out the facts about one of my favorite modes. And I appreciate you coming back to me. Thank you very much. WB5EKU from AA0RX.
WB5EKU. Hey, no problem. I'm glad I'm able to answer your question, and please fire away. That's exactly how I'm learning it too, is by asking questions and by digging and doing whatever I can to find out as much information as I can. Some of it's very hard to find. Possibly because we're on the cutting edge here, and that's what I love about it. That's a part of amateur radio I really like. So ask away. I honestly don't mind, and I know the spirit that you're asking it, and I'm just hoping that my answers are helping you and anyone else on the net that's listening. 10-6HKH, WB5EKU.
All right, Don, those rumors about your social life they're completely unfounded. So, AA0RX, it's fine that if you get to know Don, just don't get too close. All right, this is the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable, where we started 1 hour. Well, we started 1 hour earlier. That's the new start time. So for those that are tuning in around the 8 p.m. Pacific time, and you believe that the roundtable has been running for at least an hour, you're right. And a reminder to set your clocks, your calendar, whatever device you use to remind yourself to do something, for 7 p.m. Pacific time, whatever that may be. Right now it's standard time, and I think this weekend we changed, thankfully, to daylight savings time. I'm tired of the sun going down at 4:30, and that had been darker because now I'm getting into a little soapbox here, but daylight savings time, standard time does nothing besides make it dark earlier. We should be, daylight savings time year-round in my view. But in any event, neither of those matter, because if it's 7 o'clock on my clock, that is 7 p.m., that's when we're starting, regardless of the time zone, whatever time constraint that may be applicable to us in a particular time zone that isn't applicable to you, doesn't matter. If it's 7 o'clock Pacific, anything, that's our start time. So hopefully you can join us if you're tuning in late by listening at 7 p.m. It's a permanent thing, not temporary. It's been in the works for some time, much requested, and everybody seems to like it. So that's the important thing. So, we have had some fairly good discussions about the capabilities and what people have thought about the ID4100, the new ICOM mobile. Not that it was all good or favorable, but we've had some good discussions. So the radio was to be released in March. Now, I do recall it was like the second week of March, but myself not being on the pre-order list, I thought I'd check to see if anyone actually got that radio and would like to tell us about it, tell us what you think. If not, we'll just keep asking every Thursday night until someone finally gets tired of me asking and keys up in response. Stations, please key up.
Center 1 Hotel November, saying howdy.
Hey, Brian, 01 Hotel November. I see Z01 RT, and I realize the repeater has Z01 HN. So, what's the story with that? I mean, how long are you going to be hiding under the skirts of Z01 RT? And you don't have to answer that because it's none of my business, I suppose. Anyway, Brian, welcome. Thanks for keying up. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, there's some technical reasons here, which I'm more than happy to discuss. Firstly, I am running a G3 gateway, and also I can run the DCS and XRF reflectors, and I'm working the ICOM rack now, and it has been performing quite nicely. Now, the reason that I'm running Z01RT, that's my son's call sign, is that I have here a brand spanking new ICOM 51 Alpha plus 2. And I've been having a little bit of a play with it and learning how to use it. I have got the software on my computer in the terminal mode, although I haven't quite got it sorted yet. There is a bit of a learning curve with it, but I'm well down track now, and hoping perhaps next week I'll be able to perhaps take you through a quick rundown on the terminal mode. One of the nice features is the green LED on top for receive, the red LED when you're transmitting in standard mode, and when you're in the terminal mode, orange on transmit. And so far I've only had one contact in the terminal mode with Adrian VK4TUX. So it does work. I haven't yet used it as a hotspot. That's hopefully what we can talk about next week. Over.
Yeah, that would be interesting. So I got you now as to the reason for it. You explained it last time. It's just that perhaps those watching online at their software on the radio would see, Z01RT, the imposter. Yeah, but we now understand. All right. Yeah, getting that update next Thursday would be greatly appreciated, and we appreciate you being with us, Brian. All right, so let's take a break and see if there are stations with questions or topics they'd like to have covered. You can ask questions, of course, about anything you've heard thus far, or perhaps you have a follow-up to a discussion we had on an earlier roundtable, but this is kind of like an open section or segment of Thursday night D-Star Roundtable. In that, you can ask a question about anything that concerns D-Star, at least, perhaps open source digital thing we've discussed. No bounds. You don't have to ask me for permission. Also, if there's a topic you'd like to have started, let me know what that is, and we're happy to entertain it. So it's kind of what's on your mind before we carry on with topics that are on my mind. So stations, please key up.
KK6PR.
KK6PR.
KK6PR, welcome to the net. Go ahead.
Good evening, Light and the Net. This is Rick, KK6PR in Crooked River Ranch, Oregon. And first, I just wanted to give you an update from last week. I wanted to thank everybody for their suggestions. I replaced the Maryland D-Star image on my Raspberry Pi 3B and DV Mega with D-Star Commander, and everything worked flawlessly on the first boot up. And that was with a wireless connection to my home Wi-Fi. And since I live out here in the boondocks in Central Oregon, where there's no 4G service, I had to drive into town to get a better cell phone coverage. But my portable hotspot once again booted up and connected first time using my cell phone service. So thanks again to everybody on the roundtable for the advice. And my question tonight is, what's the best way to generate a combined D-Star and FM repeater list for use with the ICOM ID51 Alpha and the ID5100 radios? And there's a reason I'm asking this is because for the D-Star side, I've always assumed that the list generated at dstarinfo.org was the best way to get a current D-Star repeater list. And in the past, I've downloaded that and installed a D-Star only list for my ID31 Alpha with no problems. However, the combined D-Star and FM list that's generated for my 51 and 5100 radios seems to have an issue with bank settings. The download database looks fine, but when you import it to the radio, the file into the radio using either an SD card or the ICOM cloning software, the bank settings change and they're not imported correctly. And I also use RT System software for other stuff, but there seems to be a problem with the file that's generated from dstarinfo.org. So my question is, what's the best source for a combined list, or at least a current list of D-Star repeaters that can be imported into the radios for that repeater list? And maybe I should ask if anyone has had any similar problems importing dstarinfo.org files and getting incorrect bank settings for these radios, or if there's a way to correct it. KK6PR.
Alrighty, interesting question. We haven't talked about this for a while, although we did visit sources of D-Star reflectors and repeaters, separate, of course, from the DR mode list, which is a different list of repeaters. So let's see who. Oh, there we have AA0RX who can help you out, I hope. Other stations who can provide some help, please line up. But first to Gary, AA0RX, go ahead.
AA0RX returning. I understand your question as with RT systems and programming, you could have some anomalies, I think, if I heard your question right. But when I first got my RT systems software for a couple of my D-Star radios, on at least one occasion, maybe two, I had to actually contact RT systems. And in the DR mode, there's a bunch of different repeaters that they have that were kind of, the best I can say is gobbledygook. You look at the repeater, and it would have all these other strange characters in there, and they determine through what's called a team view. If you team view into RT Systems, they will help you, and they will determine if you have a corrupt radio image. It can happen, and it did happen to me. So we basically went to when I read my radio before I was going to shoot my frequencies into it. It saved a false image directly from the radio, of all places. So they told me where to go in the software, where to go in the software on my computer, and get rid of those corrupt files, and then restart afresh. And that helped me. And I don't know if that answers your question, or if that is your question. But I think that I had the same issue with RT Systems and a new ICOM radio in the past. Maybe back over to you to see if I clarify if that's what your question was. This is AA0RX, back to net control.
All right, KK6PR, go ahead.
RT Systems, on the shout box there, I put a link. I'd assumed that was a standard place where you could download the file for the DR mode database, the repeater list, and without even going through RT Systems software, just downloading that file and importing it on, putting it on the SD card, and then importing it into the radio without going through any other software. The file as you download it is correct as far as the bank settings. But once you import it into the radio, the bank settings somehow get corrupted or changed. And that makes it difficult if you're trying to look up a repeater, from on a region group or something. And so I'm just wondering, I'm not quite sure where the problem is, if it's the problem with the file that I'm downloading from DStar Info, or if there's actually a problem importing it into the radio. But yeah, the RT Systems wasn't really the problem. It was this DStarInfo.com. I thought that was a common place for people to get their repeater list for DR mode. But like I say, if there's a better one, I'd like to know about that also. KK6PR.
All right, who can help us out further? Maybe even suggest a better source of repeaters. What's available within RT Systems. That's another way to go. Let's help the station out. Station. AA0RX, go ahead.
AA0RX returning. If you have RT Systems, which it sounds like you do, for programming your radio, I would contact them via phone, and they will, if you're okay with that, team view. They will send you a file, you download it, you team view, and they will look at your computer, and they will see if there's any corruption going on and where it's coming from, and they can determine that for you and help you out. If you purchase the RT System software for $40, $50 or whatever, I highly recommend that you use their tech support with their software to find out where your problem may be and start there. Because I had a similar issue with me, and these files were saved deep in my computer, and they had to find that, and then we had to trash those and start anew. And after that, everything worked fine. So that has happened to me before, and use them as a resource. If you purchase their software, at least let them take a look at your files, and they may be able to help you. And if not, we'll have to go from there. So hope that helps you there. AA0RX.
All right, Gary, thank you. Other stations, please key up. All righty. Well, is there a better source of getting a repeater list? I mean, DStarInfo.org does do a good job, but what about using RF Finder? I think that's the name of the source, which is the company that actually provides the database for ARRL and its repeater directories. It's And that's something that is built into, that is, you can connect through your RT system software, and then it has an amazingly wide capability of sorting and deciding. I mean, the parameters you can set up to narrow it or broaden the repeaters. Well, that is, the area of the repeaters is pretty amazing. Has anybody used that? Is that better than dstarusers.org? And is there, beyond that, even a better source? And anyone have difficulties like the station in well, either downloading and resulting with a corrupted download, or having RT systems not do a clean job when importing that list into its software for downloading to your radio? Stations, please key up.
W36JF.
And we welcome Brian, WA6JFK. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Mike, and the roundtable. I just started listening a few minutes ago, but it's interesting about the RT systems. I also use that for all my radios, and it's interesting. I'm not sure what triggers them to upload, to change the DR file. They don't always update it when it's all actually been changed. I mean, it takes them a while, and I don't know if it's just a thing they do every month, whether they have to or not, or what. But I know that sometimes it takes a while for it to catch up with what's on the D-Star users one. And I also subscribe the RF Finder. That's a yearly fee, but it's kind of handy for building repeater lists. And I tell you the truth, I don't know where they get that list from, and I haven't really found anything odd on it or bad or inoperable. But I have found, when I first got into D-Star using the ID31, I found quite a few, including some on a system we all know about, repeaters that were entered in there incorrectly. Their frequencies were off. Usually it was frequencies. They had listed a test pair initially and then changed it later on, and they never went back and told those people to change it. And it was harder than heck to get them to change it if you aren't the trustee, but you know it's wrong. There was a repeater in Yosemite that was bad, and I had to convince them that it was bad. I couldn't key it up, but once I looked on the web and found out the real info, I got it to work. So some of the data on that D-Star database isn't always accurate either, or at least it wasn't early on. I don't know. Hopefully a lot of the issues have been found. But sorry for the rant there, but just wanted to cut in with my 2 cents. WA6JFK.
Oh, I'm glad you did, but I missed which database was found to be wildly or oftentimes out of date. Back to you.
Well, I'm assuming it's the one that you download from. It's the same one RT System gets their database from. It's the D-Star users one. I think the Georgia group, and it wasn't by error of them. I think it was repeater trustees giving them erroneous information as far as frequency pairs and stuff like that. For instance, K6 PUW was wrong when it was first in there. It was a plus on there on the shift, and it was definitely a minus. I emailed, I forget his call sign, but he claims he didn't fix it. Somebody fixed it, but initially that was wrong in there. So it's the D-Star user group, or whatever that's called, the Georgia one, that I personally witnessed at least 4 or 5 repeaters that were in that database wrong. So if you found them with your GPS radio and tried to use them, they wouldn't work, because usually it was the frequency was off. It was usually some test pair or something, if that makes any sense. Back to you.
A0RX.
I'm sorry, Brian. I thought it was the R Finder, or I think it used to be called the W2CYK repeater directory, but they don't use that name anymore. That's part of RT Systems. Now, you do pay a fee, but it's, I think it was like $9 for quite a while, but I thought that was a program that was that you can connect it to through RT Systems to get your database, and not dstarusers.org. And so I just was curious if anybody's found any problems with using that RF Finder or whatever database as part of RT Systems. It's an outside group, but like a lot of apps that you can use to upload and download frequencies and repeaters to radios and scanners and other devices, you can connect to them through the app. And I found that the $9 was, and plus they had multiple offers for renewal at ridiculously low prices. I thought that worked better but that's just me. I haven't done it in a while. All right. Thank you, Brian. Anyone else have anything further to, or has this happened to you? Any suggestions before we move on concerning getting the frequencies for the repeaters you want into your radio through RT Systems? Please, Kia.
K0OJ.
K0OJ, thanks for being with us. Go ahead.
Yeah. Me. Well, anyway, there you go. Of all the people I've ever heard on D-Star, they all have little anomalies. Gary, everybody. The cleanest, nicest, prettiest, almost not sounding Cylonish audio is you. What the heck are you using?
Oh, you know what? My mind was set on you giving an answer concerning a repeater. So instead, you're asking me, what is my setup here? Do I have that right? And I need your first name because I don't see it and I don't have you in my log, and I certainly want to get you in there. So back to K0OJ. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I don't see anybody's call through my Pi 2 and UHF Megamort either. So anyway, what the heck? Just chop the first two letters off the call.
Got it. Well, since I didn't get a response to a question from 4 or 5, man, I'm having trouble tonight too. See, it's catching. I should have put a gauze mask on before I started from KK6PR. And I should mention that if somebody has a V8 moment and realizes they had the answer to a question posed during the roundtable, feel free to key up, even if it's down the line a bit, so that we can at least get it out and while it's on your mind. My setup here is a highly processed one, and I'll take it from the mic forward. Usually I am using a RE20 or a Rode Broadcaster. Tonight it's a Rode Broadcaster. That is cabled to a processor. It's a DBS. I'm sorry, I don't. For some reason, I just can't get my mindset on this. It goes to a 1066 processor, so I can gate and limit and somewhat compress the audio because it's very noisy in here. If I turned the processor off that is told the gate to go away, you would hear all kinds of commotion and extraneous noise. From there, it goes to a mixer board. I use a Mackie Pro FX8, and that takes a signal to a amplifier and some more processing, but it's really just made to provide power, phantom power to the mic, and also to give me some listening capabilities and audio level controls. Then it's back to the mixer and out via the USB port to a PC that is running Windows DB on a dongle, and that's the core of it. All right, I think that station passed by. I just caught it and had the beep radio up. That does nothing but let me know if another station keys up or if my audio drops, and apparently the station took me out, and that is just too bad. So, I have to tell you that I found the mic makes a world of difference. And the better the mic, the better off you are. Tonight it's the Rode. It's R0DE. And I use XLR cables the best I can to take it here and there to avoid any kind of interference. I don't have to worry about routing it by laying it across to another cable that inductance might occur. I avoid that. The big show is the DBX 1066. Quite frankly, that's what does most of the work power. It also goes through a DBX equalizer, depending upon the mic that's being used, but that's 99% of it. And you know what I should do is take a photo of the shack and the mic. And the mic's on a boom. I use the mouse push-to-talk to transmit. I find that easier than a foot switch, although that is certainly capable. I listen on a pair of Sennheiser earphones that are plugged into the mixer board, and the Mackie board I like a lot. So, there it is in a long-winded nutshell, but I will take some photos and put them someplace and let everybody know where that is. K0OJ, back to you.
Okie dokie. I was
N4BLW.
All right, let me check to see if K0OJ has stopped transmitting. We've had a series of 3 transmissions that were doubles from N4DLW and his DB4 Mini that took him out. So N4DLW, if you want into the roundtable, stand by. K0OJ, hopefully you've unkeyed, and I'll copy.
N4BLW.
oh my, yeah. Whatever that was R2ing all over the place. So I thought you were probably doing some processing. K0OJ, love it.
Very good. N4DLW, I strongly suspect, I suggest you power your unit down. You're transmitting and probably not knowing it, but if you're listening, your device is, well, you're doubling with stations and interfering with the net. So if you could power that down, maybe give it a reboot, and it'll stop it from just transmitting wildly, which seems to be the case. So N4DLW, happy to have you join us after you've powered down and or rebooted your DB4 Mini or found another hotspot or jumped on a repeater. All right, N6HK, everybody just stand by. All right, K7REX, he came through as a double. Let me see if you were trying to get into the round table. K7REX, go ahead.
That was a miss key. I'm sorry, my K7REX.
No problem. And for DLW, did you have anything for the roundtable? Please key up. Go ahead. All right, nothing there. I'm sure that was an errant device, and hopefully that'll get remedied. Because we had a bunch of doubles that came through the screen and did not register, which is very odd in my perspective. Even double stations registered, such as like K7 REX did, and you know it happens. I can at least call on you. Let me see if there are stations who keyed up and were not recognized. Please key up now. A0RX, go ahead.
I just took a brief pause there before I keyed up. I was not one of the stations that keyed up, just FYI. But I did have a comment before you told OJ about the beautiful processing that you're doing, which sounds pretty cool. I have a Mackie 12-channel mixer in the shack, so I may have to pick your brain about how to get that rolling here to make OJ happy with my audio. Going back down the log, I think it's KK6PR. He had a question that we were answering, I think. And anyway, I had a little bit more for that. Let's see if I have it. KK6PR, or anybody else, actually. I have had issues with not RT Systems. It's not their fault. They produce a software for you to program your radio, but each repeater, SysOp, is responsible for getting the proper information over to whatever database. I use RepeaterBook here through RT Systems, and it pulls in the database of the contemporary repeater list. But I have had issues with a local repeater here, and that is W0DK. W0DK was the owner of the repeater, and the trustee, and they changed trusteeship to KC0DS. This is in Boulder. And when they did that, that information didn't go through the system, and I was stuck with W0DK as what I thought was a working database, and I couldn't control the repeater, as in unlinking and then linking to other reflectors, because I was using a totally different call sign, because D-Star is dependent on the exact call sign of the repeater that you're going to unlink and then link to, and hopefully that sheds some light or help in your direction there. And that's all I really had, unless you have another question there. Back to N6HAH from AA0RX.
All right, did everyone hear his answer? It looked like we might have lost audio to XRF002. Is there a station listening on one of our reflectors who did not hear AA0RX's response? I'd like to know. Please key up. Well, good. Nothing seen there. It could have been on my end. Sometimes that happens. You know, in light of what we've just seen, that we've had several DB4 minis that have acted up on their own, and I would be interested in finding out if this is a continuing problem, because when this was last discussed, now it's been probably about a month, supposedly the DB4 guys, the company, issued a firmware update. Now, I don't have a DB4 anything, but supposedly this was a problem, and a firmware update was sent, and supposedly resolved itself. But now, for quite a long time since the DV4 Mini was put out. It has just been, from time to time, transmitting on its own. It's a common complaint. And here we have that occurring tonight. And I understand it's not on purpose, but one of the devices was transmitting repeatedly. And faster than you could probably key it up and down. The other times it's been, one or two instances here. And one of the stations texted me letting me know that they went to a different device. What is going on with the DV4 Mini? Do we need to put a skull and crossbones across that device's logo and, warn people from purchasing it? Is it only older devices, which I guess should be dumpstered? Is it, or is this something that is, just one of those things? You power it through and then you never see it happen again. But it's becoming a problem. And you hear it during the on-net hours, and people apologizing for it seemingly transmitting on its own. And I haven't heard a good reason for that. It's just that it happens. So, anybody have any thoughts on this, experiences, or is there a place where we can put a dab of super glue that puts an end to it? Is there a connector that needs to be desoldered off the board and turned around? If you know, let me know, because I think those that might be thinking about buying a DV4 Mini sure ought to know about this. Stations, please key up.
KD7YX.
KD7YXE. Go ahead.
Well, hello guys, this is Scott. I'm in Chico, California. I don't know if this is relevant to what you're saying, but I know someone that has a DV4 Mini, and he told me that it has a very weak front end, and even as low as 500 milliwatts can overload the front end on those. I don't know if that's part of the problem those have or not, but I thought I'd throw it out there. KD7YXE.
I appreciate it. Any DV4 Mini owners who are, who before powering the unit up have to get out a sledgehammer and threaten it to keep it from transmitting on its own. Anybody else have any thoughts on this? You'd think there'd be a fix or something maybe on the DV4 Mini blog site, but is a secret. We need to help them out. I mean, there aren't many users here that have that, but wow. Station, please key up. Sure. Go ahead. if you were dying, and recognize the software, kind of away on my end, maybe. But if you're having trouble with all of your transmissions of the freaking train, go ahead. Not sure if the flight to follow, but back to you, Mike. Okay, there you go. I got that 100%. Thanks for that. Well, maybe it does. I don't know. I'm hoping it does. K7REX, go ahead.
Everybody say the same thing I was going to say. They got new firmware out, and then they've had two different versions of the control panel thing out. The latest one was it this morning or last night? And then they did one before that. According to the European dealer for DD4 Mini, the United States dealer here released some of the DB4 Minis, the ones with the chip for voice, pretty mature, and they had some problems. But I have one of those, and it hasn't given me any problems so far. And like it's just been said, they've been sent out updates. I'm current now, have been since they've been putting them out, but maybe somebody's using something old, but it was something new, and they've got problems. Who knows? K7REX.
All right. Well, I mean, I haven't. Well, your call came through one other time, I think, and so you know, it was just disappointing that a device that is as popular as it at least was at one point, it was one of the first multi-mode devices out. You know, just starts transmitting. I mean, you know, so I guess it doesn't matter to some, but you know, you get tired of hearing your call when you're in just a listening mode, you know, from a station responding to you, and you know, it's just not right. And it's not your fault; it's the device's fault, unless, of course, you do nothing to solve it. But well, I hear good things about the DB4 Home, but you know, the Mini's been around long enough to not just do errant transmitting. All right. Anybody else have anything else in the DB4 Mini? You know, I'm happy to talk about devices, but I'm more interested in, you know, is this the way it's going to be with the DB4 Mini? And given how long this has been a problem, you'd think that something sooner than the fix that just got posted to the site, as we have heard, was fixing it. Or is there something else that solves the problem that, you know, we should disseminate tonight and everywhere else we can think of to reach the DB4 Mini owners to put an end to this? You think that that's would be, you know, what would be the right thing to do? So stations, please, Kia.
WE5 K7REX.
I have WB5EKU and K7REX. First to WB5EKU. Go ahead.
Okay, Mike, I just have a question for Dan. Dan, K7REX, what firmware are you running now? I know you pointed me to 1.76. Is there a later version of 1.76?
K7REX. No, 1.76 is the last firmware. The control console, the DB Mini control panel, they just update for that. It's a different one, the one they had before. And Mike, the reason why I got in there, what you saw probably earlier was I was trying to connect into XERF002 Alpha, and it wasn't connecting up. I don't know if it's down when I was trying to do it, or I had problems. I don't know. I'm now on 310 Alpha right now, but it connected right in there. So when I was trying to do that, you may have seen my call sign come around. back to you there, my K7REX.
Oh, okay. No problem. So that's fine. Anyone else have anything further on the DB4 Mini? It's just so unusual to have those many, the number of devices and calls associated keying up just, randomly, and once or maybe even twice during a net is no biggie. Same thing as an inadvertent key up, but it's just odd. Anything further on the DB4 Mini before we move on? Stations, please key up.
And 4DLW.
A0RX.
I have N4DLW and A0RX. N4DLW. So, now you're with us, and what'd you do to fix that? Thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Oh, good evening, Mike. Everybody in the net. Well, here's what was going on. I was looking through my emails and saw an email from Wireless Holdings that there's new software out. Firmware, both. Do not mix the two. And it's firmware 177. They put some out just the other day that was new. And I think the software is dated like March 6th. It's firmware 177. And I was loading it on a laptop that has very poor speaker. And I'm listening to another net in the TV. And I thought I heard my call mentioned. And I shut down that computer. I was trying to get the Bluetooth to sync up or pair. And I heard you, so I shut that down, and I fired up this other one. I was on the DB4 audio. I think that's what they call it. The one that's got the DVI chip in it. And I switched over to the regular Mini. And I'm only came with 74. Hope it's sounding good. That's what happened to me. Sorry about that. I may have pressed the space bar or something. I'm not sure what happened there, but it's been working pretty good for me. And while I'm here, I want to say that I went to the Dayton, to the Orlando Hamfest, and saw his presentation. He was displaying the DB4 mobile, and expecting to have it at Dayton for sale, I believe is the plan. Of course, hiccups happen, but they're getting closer. They had it on display. Hang on, back to net.
KB02VR. KB02VR.
Okay, KD0QZR. Got you doubling, no big to do, but I got you in the line, and we'll pick you up here in a moment. So N4DLW, as I was saying, I'm glad you got it fixed, and the copied firmware 1.77, so WB5EKU and others who are asking, 1.77 is the latest. And so let me just take a moment and ask Dave N4DLW, what's the difference? Well, because between the obvious, one is DB4 home and one is DB4 mobile. But is it just a bracket difference, or is there something substantially new and better for the mobile versus the home? And is it? And this is I'm just too many questions, I'm sure, but the DB4 home has not implemented probably 90% of the features it claims to. It sold the radio and said, "Oh, we'll get the firmware and updates out down the road." The biggie, of course, not needing a computer or an internet connection. That is a computer connection for the dashboard. What about the DB4 mobile? What can you tell us? N4DLW, go ahead.
Well, the mobile is like a radio. It's just a radio that's got all the going to have all different modes and do different bands later on, and I think it's going to come out with 220 and 2 meters and 4.4, and there goes the scanner company. And where the home is just the box with the computer built in and not really a radio per se, but it's just like a mobile radio. The mobile. Not good at describing it, but it's the one supposed to have the I'm trying to think of the word. Your cell phone software in it. The 4G or whatever they call it. That's supposed to be in there too. Anyhow, does that kind of help? And forward of you.
Just curious. Thank you. AA0RX. Go ahead.
AA0RX returning. Yeah, I just kind of a question for you guys. We're talking about the DV4 Mini and or I think it's K7RX who recently purchased the OpenSpot. If those couple of devices, the only reason I haven't purchased those or even gotten interested is because of the ability to use DTMF or touch tones to get around to the different hotspots. I'm not so interested in sitting in front of my computer and or cell phone and saying, hook to this reflector or this other reflector. I'm not putting it down for folks that love that application, but I really like the idea of having a headless system, and I can actually implement all the usage by my radios and accessing or unlinking commands and all that through a HT or a mobile. So it's just a simple question for clarification on DV4 Mini.
All right, thank you. KD0QZ, I'm sorry, let me try this again. KD0QZR, go ahead.
Kilo Delta Zero, Quebec, Zulu Radio. Didn't mean to check in on you guys. I just got my OpenSpot set up here in the mobile 18-wheeler, so didn't mean to key up on you guys, but since you picked me up, I thought I'd say hello, just sitting here listening in to you. KD0QZR.
Yeah, no big deal. I'm glad you did. Let me have your first name for the log. Go ahead.
What was that? A little R2D2 there. I didn't catch the end of it.
Your first name. It's not displayed, and you're new to me, and so you're new to the log. I want to put you in there. Go ahead.
Oh, Roger. My name here is Justin Juliet, Uniform Sierra, Tango, India, November. Home QTH is Augusta, Kansas, just about 12 miles east of the city of Wichita. Currently in Phoenix, Arizona.
All righty, good signal. Thanks for joining us, and I appreciate you keying up and explaining. All right, let me see if there are stations who keyed up who weren't recognized. We had kind of a mishmash of doubles, and it could be my pacing. I've been, if a question is pending, rather than just calling the next station in line, I often pause a little bit longer to let the stations key up, and it could be I fooled too many people. But in any event, if you keyed up and I did not recognize you, please key up again. Doing so now.
AA0RX. N6HK8.
AA0RX, go ahead.
N6HKHAA0RX. Just want to make sure I have it because you turned it over to me, I thought, then I started talking and nothing ever came back, and then the other station, KD0QZR, basically stomped over my head, and don't even know if I got in there.
Well, you did, but you stopped. Well, I guess what happened is your transmission dropped, but it dropped at a spot where it sounded appropriate for you to unkey. So, given that you were still talking, we did lose the last. We'll just give you a chance to say it over again. I'm sorry this happened. AA0RX, go ahead. Well, let's try one more time. AA0RX got the last transmission. Apparently your signal dropped. I picked it up, and we're giving it back to you again, but I did not hear a key up after I handed it back to you. So, AA0RX, try it again. All right, nothing heard from Gary. I'm assuming that he's having difficulty and probably explained the fact that he dropped off, although it wasn't noticeable to me. So, again, stations, if you keyed up, I did not recognize you. Let's take you now. Please key up again. All right, nothing seen or heard, and we'll let Gary, and if there's a station that is also trying to get in, because we don't quick key, but sometimes I get chewed out for doing it a little bit too slow, just key back up and we'll get you into it. I have accumulated some questions from stations that are listening far, but either don't have a repeater or a device nearby, or they just can't get into the net. And one of the questions is related to the RT Systems software error message. And, oh, I see, I got actually a photo, a screenshot of the error message window, which is the best of all systems. So the question, which is coming in from KB6CUS, is, has anyone else had this error come up in their RT Systems software? And I'll read it verbatim. Control error. This is the error message window. Control could not be created. 5500, and then it goes into, I'm not even sure what kind of, just a series of numbers and digits. It's almost like it's a MAC address, but it's hard to say. Anyway, it's control could not be created. It looks like it's error message number 5500. Anyone know what this means and if it can be fixed, or is this something that requires RT Systems to VNC into your computer and see what's going on in stations? Please key up. Well, no response. I'm sorry that we couldn't get an answer. I mean, this is the first time I've seen it, and you know, I would certainly send an email to RT Systems. That, frankly, is the best way to deal with this. It doesn't appear that this error message is requesting that you send by email a log. At least it has not come this way, and it is odd to see this kind of error, but it's a control error. But I would email them, or even for that matter, get on the phone. They're apparently really good now about answering the phone and answering email promptly, and heck, sending a screenshot and get a response. And if you do get a response, if you can, come back to the roundtable next Thursday and let us know what it is for others who may have also experienced this error. So, the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable in 6HKH with you tonight. Let's see if AA0RX is able to get in. We'll take a pause for him. AA0RX, go ahead.
AA0RX returning, and hopefully I'm in there and not doubling.
You are, and actually, since the last time you keyed up saying, hey, I think I got cut off or doubled, you haven't doubled. In fact, we've had no transmission from you. But that's beside the point because you're in there now. Go ahead.
Yeah, roger that. Well, I assure you I made a transmission, but it didn't get in there. Anyway, I was looking to find out the DB4 mini guys that are here, or the open spot. I think it's K7REX. Just a simple question. If the reason I haven't purchased those two devices is because I don't know if they'll actually use the radio to DTMF. I'm not so interested in the phone applications and Bluetoothing and stuff like that to change the reflectors. I'm more interested in actually using the radio with DTMF codes to hook in or unlink from a reflector. I'm wondering if they could clarify that, if that device does that. Either of those devices do that. AA0RX.
All right, who knows? Please key up.
Victor Echo 5 X-Ray Echo Foxtrot.
V5XEF. Appreciate you keying up. Go ahead.
Yeah, in answer to the question, I don't know about the open spot. I don't have one. I do know the DB4 Mini does not respond, is not set to respond to any DTMF codes, but if you change the CQ to the command to link to a particular reflector, it will respond to that properly. I hope that helps you somewhat.
It does. Anyone else offer any support on that? Well, anybody else have a view on this? Please key up.
W8VI.
W8VI. Go ahead.
Okay, very good. This is Gary, W8VI near Cincinnati, and I've got the open spot, and yes, it does. When you can go from reflector to reflector, just like you can with the DV Mega and the Raspberry Pi, and it gives you an announcement saying that you're. One of the nice things about I've noticed about the open spot is when you're, let's say, on 30 Charlie and you want to go over to 1 Charlie, you go over to 1 Charlie and you key down and it says disconnecting from 30 Charlie, and then it says reconnecting to 1 Charlie, which is a pretty nice feature because it disconnects you and then connects you back onto the other reflector. But I will say, running the two side by side, the DV Vega with the W6KD software into the Raspberry Pi 3 is more stable, in my opinion. What I've noticed with the open spot is that it does drop out from time to time. There's small dropouts, and it's still something that I think they need to work on. It's just my opinion from W8VI. Back to net.
K7REX.
Great, appreciate that. K7REX, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry dragging my feet here. I was looking in the manual. My ID51 doesn't have the luxury of having the touchstone pad on the front, so DTMF was not an option I played with. But I looked in the manual, and on the DB4 Mini, and yes, it does. It will work with D-Star and Fusion reflectors. I'm looking at the manual right now using the touch tone DTMF feature. It says, for example, to change reflector from DCS024 Charlie, just type B2403 and it will do its thing. Anyway, so it does it. And I hadn't had a chance to go look at the open spot, but it sounds like that answer's already been out there. Yeah, OpenSpot seems to be an experiment ongoing. I find that the DB4 Mini is more stable than the OpenSpot. I have, it's just, there's just something kind of unstable about the OpenSpot. I don't know quite how to put a finger on it, but when I compare it to the DB4 Mini, DB4 Mini seems to be a lot more stable, and they both work well, don't get me wrong. And the Raspberry Pi deal, that's we work with D-Star, but that's all we're talking about, and it's the most stable as all. That maybe just works, but it's been around for a while and proven itself. K7REX.
All righty. Well, we had several stations when we were talking about the devices, probably about a month ago. We had a couple of stations that just were, dead set that the OpenSpot was the best device in the world. There were none better, stable, works each time and every time. And then, there were those stations that had some issues with it and, are glad that they're on the first floor and don't have a sledgehammer nearby. So everybody's experiences seem to vary. I can tell you, though, that if I was to take a tally, there's no doubt that the DB4 Mini has been more problematic than the OpenSpot, just in general, keeping track of descriptions and characterizations of these devices by those who use them. Keeping in mind, of course, the DB4 Mini has been out a longer time, so it can accumulate more complaints. But it's to each their own. If it works for you and you like it, then it doesn't matter that it doesn't work for someone else, except to the extent that that should be related here so that those that are having the difficulty can perhaps resolve it. All right, other stations, please key up. Well, perhaps I should have said anything further on the DB4 Mini or the OpenSpot. If you'd like to contribute or give your opinion, and we'll take that now. It's always, a good time to kick around devices. So, please key up.
K7REX.
K7REX, go ahead.
Yeah, I should probably clarify my comments a while ago, and it probably applies to both the DB4 Mini and the OpenSpot. I was one of those just raving about the OpenSpot. I really like the OpenSpot. Problem is they're tweaking that thing, it seems like almost daily. And from one version to the next firmware upgrade, it will change. I would have a version or firmware going just great, everything was fine. I'd upgrade to the next wonderful thing, and there'd be something else that wasn't, but if you look at the DB4 Mini, they're into their second revision in the last couple of days. So it probably just depends on what you're doing and at the time if it works for you or not. But for me, the DB4 Mini has proven the better of the two. The next guy might do just the opposite. They both work and do a good job.
Well, as I said, I mean, I guess I got upset with the DB4 Mini because that was the device transmitting on its own with a mind of its own tonight. Again, I don't have either one, but as I said, it's not so much whether there are more complaints or not, which is just simply a view of mine. If it works for you, then that's a great thing. And for that matter, it's like anything else. If you put the time and effort into it, that is to learn it, to experiment with it, to make sure that you understand its nuances and you keep current on the software and firmware updates, there's no reason for it not working. And the fact that somebody gets mad at it is something to take into consideration, just as if you're buying a car and there seems to be an issue that people have with a particular car. Well, you can avoid it because there are lots of other choices, or you can go drive that car and check it out. So I appreciate those who have offered their opinions, because that's how we learn. And I don't think there's been too many devices that have been talked here, whether D-Star or multi-mode, that have been so horrible as to, put out an SOS and shun them and, draw a big X in a circle like a, Ghostbusters wipeout sign, what I'm talking about, across that name, and to never talk about it again. So, all right, let's, we started this actually quite a while ago with a general open segment of questions and topics that people had, and we've had that and wandered around a bit, and then I, decided to push the issue on the DB4 Mini. Let me go backwards and see if there are stations with questions that they have concerning D-Star or anything they've heard. It doesn't have to be anything more than something that's on your mind, or if there is a topic that you'd like us to address that you haven't heard, or at least not heard enough about, that's something that's also, we'd like to hear from you as well. So stations, please key up.
AA0R.
AA0RX, go ahead.
AA0RX returning. I've been here quite a bit, but anyway, I was hoping my buddy Justin in Wyoming would key up and ask a question, but that's okay. Hopefully he's still here listening. I think he's connected, but recently we had an issue with his image. He has the Maryland D-Star image, and he would do the update with the image, and it would not come back with the XRF720 Charlie here. And so we were kind of brainstorming why that might be, and we think that there's an IP problem with the host file update that's not updating that particular image. And my advice to him was to just go for the W6KD image and give that a shot. I think he's going to go ahead and go with that. But has anybody else here had a problem with the Maryland D-Star image in regarding its host file update? And is there anybody here that may know that, and a quick answer to that, other than, hey, I prefer W6KD's image and use that. I've already done that, so he knows that, but is there anybody else here that has that, or has had that same issue, perhaps, that may help out a fellow man trying to get on D-Star? AA0RX.
K7R.
K7REX, go ahead.
Yeah, what device is he using? What's that problem? What device?
He's using a Raspberry Pi with a DVAP and the Maryland D-Star image. The only thing I got to see was I looked at the internet and I found that his call sign is registered, and then he uses a club call, and in that club call it's double registered. There's a problem with that. I did find out for him. I don't think that's what's causing his issue, but hopefully he's here. And Justin, if you're here, speak up and let us know what you have. I'm pretty sure that that's what he has, which is a Raspberry Pi with a DVAP and the Maryland D-Star image. And I think he's going to progress to the W6KD and give that a whirl. Back over to you there, K7REX from AA0RX.
Yeah, AA0RX, I think it was, K7REX. I use Bob's W6KDs, and it's just flat. He does a good job of keeping updated, but there shouldn't be anything wrong with the other. But there is a way, if I can't remember, somebody on here probably does. It's been a while since I used anything with Bob's, but there's a way of updating that. what am I trying to say? The host files command that he put into the program there to automatically update those. I'm sure somebody will have that information. It's easy to do with Bob's. You can do it from the radio. Just in the command, and it automatically updates it. It takes care of it. Never had a problem with Bob's stuff. I did have a problem with OpenSpot once when they somehow or another forgot to update their files, but their stuff is online. In other words, it's not something that sends down. So anyway, back to you there, my K7REX.
Alrighty, guys. Well, the fact that the Maryland D-Star image may not have the correct IP for a specific repeater doesn't mean that that image is problematic. There's all kinds of things that could go wrong in updating the host file being, available to the image users or being pushed to them or getting the host update. It doesn't mean that you should bail from one and the other, unless you're just having difficulty along the line. I haven't heard of any reports, nor have I read any repeatedly providing the wrong host file information, be it a DNS or an IP address.
J-E-7-C-S-W. N6H-K-H.
Alright, N6HK, just letting everybody know that I'm having technical difficulties at my end, and one of the X reflectors had to be restarted, and so we're taking a pause. I'm on a radio that isn't going to work for me running the net, but I can at least, this is the radio I use to check the audio connections and to listen to, well, it gives me a warning if I drop, so I just need a few more minutes if you would like to make a cup of coffee and or think of a question or comment or something to say on the round table. This is a great time to do it. I should be back here where you can hear the machine rebooting itself. It shouldn't be too much longer now. I really am sorry about this, but hey, things happen. That's a case.
Okay, Mike K6KD, XRF002 is back up, and it looks like most, if not all, of the links are reestablished. So once you're ready, things should be good to go on the back end.
All right, John, copy. Yeah, it's just so odd to have everything freeze up here. That hasn't happened for years. But it's going to be, well, maybe about another minute at the most to get this machine back up. And it's, of all the things to go down, this is the one that I never want to go down. But there it went. So shortly, I'll be back here. So just give me a moment to, there we go. Yeah, I'm starting to cook with gas here. All right, let me issue some commands and get the programs up and back at it. 6HKH.
W6CJX.
All right, N6HK, let's see if we've got it. Yeah, we do. So, I am sorry about that, guys. I haven't had a serious crash like that in quite some time. It doesn't seem likely that one of the reflectors running offline would cause that to happen, but And I doubt that it's related, but it is so coincidental, and it took it out, everything, the programs and the computer. It wouldn't even respond to control alt delete or anything. So, well, I'm glad it doesn't happen very often. It just is not supposed to happen during a net. So, N6HKH with the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable, we're back at it. And at this point, because I can't say for certain who transmitted and who didn't, and who was keying up and who wasn't, and the like, let me call for stations that keyed up during the last few minutes or so and either didn't hear me or didn't get recognized or for whatever reason are unhappy. Let's have you key up again. Please do so now.
KB7CSW.
KB7CSW. Go ahead.
Good evening to you, Mike, and the rest of the group that's here. I guess this could the broadcast radio call-in phrases. A long-time listener, first-time caller. Been listening to you guys for quite some time and have learned a lot. So, first off, thanks to you and Bob and everybody else that puts out all this knowledge, and to everybody else, of course. I was the one that Gary was referring to earlier. I am running a Raspberry Pi 3 with a DVAP and using the Maryland D-Star image. Now, when it comes to reflectors, I don't have any issues connecting to any of the DCS reflectors, the regular REF reflectors, or any of the XRF reflectors, with the exception of one. XRF 720 is the only one that I've tried that I get the linking to instead of linked to. And I've tried it a dozen times and can't get into it, so Gary and I figured that like he said earlier, we think it might be an IP address issue in the host file or something like that, but I've had it up and running for a little over a month now, and it has given me zero problems at all. It's done everything that I asked it to do or needed to do, but that was my only hiccup, was that one particular X reflector. It will not let me through my hotspot, it won't. Using my repeater here, the repeater gets into it just fine, but for whatever reason, just that one particular XRF, I can't get into it with my hotspot. So that's what the problem was. Gary, I tried to get in here a couple of guys ago, but didn't quite make it on the trigger here. But I am here and listening, so there you go, Mike. That's basically a rundown of what Gary was explaining I was having issues with.
All right, Justin, thanks for keying up. Actually, I have you in the log, so you're not the first time, but, you know, this log has been running for, I don't know, 7, 8 years, and it's possible you keyed up in an earlier time or in another life or another iteration, although this has always been a Thursday night D-Star Roundtable. It just hasn't always been here on the X reflectors. So, there's nothing wrong with the Maryland D-Star image. It's as good as any other. You know, the W6KD is preferred because, well, you know why. W6KD is one of the so-called roundtable crew and maintains the system and helps make this roundtable possible, but that doesn't mean, though, you can't use another image. So, it's got to be a host file problem. It could be an incorrect IP, as you mentioned, or DNS. Well, let me ask, because that's likely the culprit, if anyone knows what the story is with XRF 720. It's possible 720 could be down or not around, but not being familiar with it. Let me see if anyone has any comments. And it would be cool, of course, if someone would post in the shop box the correct host file information, if you can update it. I'm not familiar with Maryland, but I'm assuming that you can change a host file entry in your operating system image. If it's not possible, then the question I've asked doesn't make any sense. But anyone know what the story is on 720? And let's see where we go from here. Stations, please key up.
W36G.
WA6JFK, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening again. Nothing highly technical, but I emailed that OM the other day. I heard him on one of the repeaters talking about 720, and I manually changed one of my X reflector entries to 720 and connected right up with with Bob. So I'm not sure what's going on, but I could connect to it, so it's working as far as I know. So it's something with the host file, I guess. But then the other thing I mentioned to him is I've had weird stuff with different IP devices not allowing me to connect to certain things, but I don't know. You use an iPhone to do it, and it won't connect, and you hook it up to the home Wi-Fi, and it works, or the home Ethernet, and it works. So I've had that too, but 720 seems to be operational. I think he has buddies he meets up with on there too that can get onto it. But anyway, with the commander got right on. WA6JFK.
W6.
Oh, okay. I appreciate it, Brian, and I'm assuming you're using D-Star Commander, which seems to point directly to an incorrect host file entry in the Maryland D-Star image. W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, question, what other X reflectors he tried to get to work? He said that it worked for some, but not 720. What other ones did he connect to?
Alrighty, KB7CSW, go ahead.
Well, I just went through the list and I just picked random ones. Tried our repeater here. Its default reflector is XRF307, so did that one and connected to this one here. Well, I'm on my hotspot right now, as a matter of fact, for the net. I went down the list and I picked several and didn't have any issues. It connected right up to them. For the Maryland D-Star app, or the image rather, I used the IRC DDB app on my phone to go through and change reflectors, and I made a little favorites list on there, and I got quite a few of the X reflectors, so that was where I started at. I just worked my way down there and linked to every one of them, and then I just started picking random ones, and I went through several, and I was able to connect to all of them, and when I'd go back to 720 and try it, couldn't get into it, and we tried again today. Me and Gary and OJ were on 720 talking, but I was using my shack radio and through our repeater, and I tried it again and still couldn't get into it. So, but yeah, that's it so far. Out of all the X reflectors I've tried, I've linked up to them with no problems at all, except for 720. It won't let me do it through my hotspot.
W6KD, go ahead.
Okay, I was wondering if it might be a port forwarding issue, but it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like it is a bad host file entry, and I know that XRF 720 did change its address, but it's been months ago that happened, and so yeah, you can, well, your option, one option is to go into your host file and edit it manually, and I'm not sure. Well, I know that Maryland pushes they push updates, so it might get overwritten if you go in there and do that. But you'll at least know that that's it if you get the current address, the current entry, and I'll look it up here and put it on the shout box in a minute.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Gary and I had talked about as well. The way the Maryland D-Star image is set to update is it does it every day, or not, I'm sorry, not every day, every 7 days. Every 7th day it will do it. I believe it said in the book at midnight, and I rarely ever shut mine off. It's been on for well over 7 days, and so I've crossed their threshold at least a couple of times since I've had it. So if the updates did work, then It didn't get that one, or the updates didn't work. I don't know. Usually I'm in bed by midnight, so I don't know. But that is one way, manually updating the host file is one of the options that Gary and I talked about as well.
All right, and we have one station at B5 FPS, sorry, close to CIP for our telephony. We did a change from that. That's information really good. That's what I use most sometimes. That might be the case, but regular case, safety, and I've found that even if you have a savage image of everybody using GPLX, there are various ways in which the host file is stored. For example, the extra factors within to include in the file, you have the extra OCFT, or the default OCFT, put in with the space explanation of the water governor, it's possible that the file is the combination of two different areas where users usually what see, but the bottom line is linked to the variations. Unless you're from the company going it normal and using a render. Nano, which is really by best bet is to get writing out an image should have some precise words, whether it's or an email, and that's the best way to get support to your image and gets it way that way. Then you have to answer the question whether you use that and get a regular image or another image, because there's a lot of work. I know about a lot of work importing these server managers for them, and everybody that has an image should be supporting. I'm not saying anybody that is so that's the best way to get correct you might. I don't think there's a lack of support or you just kind of have it. Of course, I'm not sure how you go about getting the host file on there or and actually haven't heard anybody talk about the way you go about doing that. So, if you like that image, well, find out if the host file is just suggested, and you've got to read at least one post in the shop box of potential IP address for that connector, and adding changes, especially for running your favorites, and narrow down. So, access points to what you're in on it, very glad. So once again, we got to make sure that everything was updated, and because we need to again, this is the guys that got it outside that as far as I know, we updated the 377 shop box, and again, I don't believe the information is correct from the E5 SUF, being at 204.5.1, maybe we'll find this probably application on this here. I got was go get the shop box, and I do believe it's the correct one. And they're not taking it out of that because you're using who is a the status here, not been any here, so unless he has the correct information, that he's Okay, sure, yeah, go ahead. My initial posting with the IP address was wrong. It took a little while I had. follow the XRF-2020 starting in the U.S. because in my search of various lists, we did have quite a lot of discussion about host files and host lists and whether apps against what on February 23rd, and I need to do that again. But I was certainly using that NES in avoid the IP when I'm doing host files or whatever image. So with all that in mind, assuming that we have this fishing service tax station that is and make sure that we got a him or away, or at least hands work. You see on the shop on it, and nothing just does or has, but 0 on that. Go ahead. Were you never nothing like that? My apologies. I don't use WW. I got a few people here with the same name, so we come up with a form and here or something that we got to do with me. I understand all that stuff. And I was going to use these minutes and my SD card that I had. It was big enough to go format side. The SD imager, and I wouldn't do it. And I tried the Win32, that wouldn't do it. So I told Gary earlier, I was just going to take it out and shoot it. So I'll be going down the aisle to get a couple more SD cards. I'll have two images of each of them, and then I'll go in there, and they were changing the IP addresses and all of that stuff before. So I got to learn how somehow make sure and have a second copy of the on there just way out. I was today and got up with it and let me in here for the planning for it out and getting it up and running. Unfortunately, because the card didn't want to work with how it should inside. So that way, probably going to be on I got these cards around. I got them all downloaded and ready to go. I just got to get a good class 10, bring up 10 SD card to put in it. So I don't have anything on it or this and that. But if I do have any issues, Gary and I will get a couple of people. I got a list of runs during the weekend. I guess nothing else after that. I'll be back here next Thursday and we'll give you a report on it. I recognize well, that sounds like a plan. You might be interested in having anybody up. I wish you could take self-update host files and everything over those guys and say, hey, it looks like I'm running an incorrect host file. And number two, I have the correct one and you don't. How do I go about getting host file in your image? And it would be interesting to know how to go about doing that, and we can put that in the roundtable forum, not in the shout box, but I mean in the regular forums, and just to have that for those that prefer the Maryland D-Star image. I'm not one that believes you should just throw something out the window, although, we're all prone to that. I've threatened to throw things out the window, down the steps, under the car, into the curb, or the neighbor, and, sometimes that happens, but for the most part it doesn't. I sleep on it, and it seems to be better in the morning. But however you go about it, let us know. We appreciate it. ZL1RT. Go ahead.
Very good there, Mike. I just wanted to give a word of advice when it comes to SD cards. After a long period of time, I've found that the SanDisk Extreme 16 gig card is the most reliable of all the SD cards that I've played with. I've tried many of them and I've had many failures, but the genuine SanDisk is the one that works the best. These cards get a fair bit of writing to them, log files, and I find if you turn off the log file, it's not so hard on them. The images remain going much longer. Over.
Well, we appreciate that, Brian. You can't go wrong with the SanDisk back at a time when there was a real issue with SD cards and the older Raspberry Pis. There was quite a bit of activity in keeping track at various sites of what worked with the Pis and what didn't. And the SanDisk were usually at the top, and the Polaroid, for example, was at the bottom. And rarely do we hear of any issues with them, but bad things can happen. It's always better to have two than just one. So appreciate it. Also, this turning off the log file, if you can do that, that's always best. But I don't know that you can do that in every image. Let me pose a question, if I can, to W6KD. We've heard from Brian concerning the log file turning it off. W6KD, is that off as default in DStar Commander, and do you suggest that people run it so that it's there in case of trouble, or do you just turn it on after trouble brews to be able to establish it? It seems to me that, that would be letting the opening the barn doors a little bit, or trying to close the barn door after the horse got out, or whatever that, phrase is. W6KD, what do you think? Go ahead.
Well, to my knowledge, there's no way of turning it off in the G4KLX images, and if you try turning it off in the DStar Commander image, you will lose all of your RF commands because it reads the log file. It tails the log file, and that's where it gets. That's where its interface to run all the RF commands comes from. That's where it goes to get the commands you put in your call, because an entry is made in the log file that shows what your radio had in the call when you transmitted. And so if you do that, you will break DStar Commander, and all of the RF stuff will stop working, and maybe some other stuff as well. The current recommended size for an SD card for DStar Commander is 8 gigabytes. The actual size of the image is the actual amount of used storage in there is somewhere around the 2 gigabyte mark. So even on the small, if you're using an 8 gig card, you've got somewhere around 6 gigabytes of free space. And we're talking about simple text files, no graphics, nothing else. You would literally, you could run your hotspot for probably decades before you would ever have to even think about the space that all those log files are using. Every 24 hours, it generates a new file. So whatever file it's working with never gets too big. And you can go in from time to time. In fact, there's a command in the DStar Commander suite there for cleaning that all up. But there's really no need to do that very often, because you've got oodles and oodles and oodles of space. If you're using a DStar Commander image for a dedicated hotspot and you're not running anything else on the Pi, it's a non-factor, really, back to that W6KD.
Okay, Bob. Well, thank you for that, and I'm glad you were able to correct what I had to say. So let me go back to Brian, Z01RT. Under what circumstances or what device or image did you have thoughts of turning the log file off? I mean, intuitively, it sounds like something you should do, but in light of W6KD's comments, apparently Not so fast. Z01RT, go ahead. Let's try it this way. ZL1HN. Are you still with us?
Roger, I am, Mike. I just wondered what happened. I heard nothing. So I unlinked and relinked, and then heard you come back. So I'm not sure what happened there. Over.
Well, you're with us now. Did you hear W6KD's comments?
No, I didn't hear a word. After you put it to him, I heard nothing. Over.
All right. In summary, he takes issue with your suggestion to turn log files off. He said, oh no, you leave them on. In fact, if you turn them off in D-Star Commander, you lose the command list because it looks for a log file, and it takes up so little space, and it can't hurt anything, and he can't think of any reason to turn off a log file in a hotspot image. So the question was to you, what was on your mind when you suggested turning it off? Go ahead.
Okay, well, look, I can understand that, but there's different types of images out there, as you said earlier. And the image that we've used for quite a long time, we were having problems with it shutting off after maybe 8 or 9 days of operation. I mean, the log file's really there, the purpose of it in this image is so that if you have a crash, you can go back and analyze what the fault was, and you're able to email that file to say G4KLX or something like that. That was the original intention. But both myself and John, ZL2TWS, have been turning it off for a while and found much more reliability. Prior to doing that, John was editing the list manually, cleaning it out. And then we suddenly realized that with the cheaper SD cards, with that continually writing to it all the time, was likely to be a cause of why they were falling over. But in saying that, now with the extreme SD cards, we haven't had that problem lately. Over.
Right. Well, that's what I wanted to find out. So I mean, I can understand how that might be a solution for you. At least we know for D-Star Commander, it's on by default and must stay on, and uses up very little space. In fact, you could go on for decades and with a log file running, at least with that image. So is it the Kiwi image that you're using, Brian, that you ran into that trouble, and maybe it's something that is unique to that particular image? 01HN, go ahead.
Roger there. Well, that was one of the images that had the problem, but several other flavors of it also had the problem. And generally the reason that the hotspot was falling over was because the image file was so large it had no room to operate. So that could have been, it could have been just that particular image. So I've seen some pretty big files fill up a 16 gig card. Over.
Well, 16 gig is fairly large for an image, but it's still relatively small as far as the SD cards go. I don't think they're terribly expensive, but all right, very good. Anyone else wish to weigh in on images and log files and sizes, or have any questions about that? Please key up now.
K-E-7-C-S
I have AA0RX and KB7CSW. AA0RX, go ahead.
AA0RX, returning. I just had a comment and was listening to that and thinking that this is just postulation now, and that's just not scientific fact, but we had the local person, NV0N, here, had, I think he somehow blocked all Chinese IP attempts to link into the system out here. And from what he was saying, there's a lot of hackers out there that could be crashing your system. I wonder if it could be hackers or something, your system may be getting hacked there, rather than it's the image filling up with such a vast quantity of log files. And maybe that's the issue. Maybe it could be another issue. That's all. And I'm sorry to be very unclear about what that issue is, but maybe you're getting hacked or something, and that's shutting that system you have down there off. And it's just an FYI. AA0RX.
Well, that's a thought. Thanks for that. KB7CSW, go ahead.
Well, thanks, I appreciate that. This is a simple question. I just did because I live in a small town. Our biggest store is Walmart, and we've got one little tiny computer shop here, and I don't know if I don't know if fixing things is all they do or if there's any type of stuff they sell. I've never been there. But I did a quick look at Walmart, and the lowest SD card that I seen there was 16 gigs. So I'm just assuming no, but the D-Star Commander only requires one that's 8. Putting a 16 gig in there, is that going to be nothing more than just a waste of space on that, or will having all that extra space cause any problems with the overall operations?
Wow, no 8 gigs. Well, I know you can mail order that, and certainly Best Buy, where I was at last looking at such cards, there are 8s, but I can see them not stocking it because, generally cameras and other devices that might use this size card, I mean, they're way beyond 8, and 8 wouldn't even work anymore. So it could be just a matter of the average consumer not in there to, or at Walmart to buy amateur radio gear or device might say, hey, we're not selling them, so we're not going to carry them. Anyway, W6KD, can you help us with an answer to that question? Does it really matter what size card you put in as long as it's greater than 8 gigs? W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually build the image on a 4 gig card. And in fact, that used to be the standard. And the reason that I went away from that standard is that, well, first of all, you really can't find 4 gig cards out there anymore anyway. And I had to jump through hoops. It took me about 20 to 30 minutes every time I generated an image to compress the image file down to something like 3.8 gigs, and the idea was that way any 4 gig card would work. Anyway, so I stopped doing that because there aren't any more 4 gig cards anyway. A large number of 4 gig cards are enough, and anything bigger than that, 8, 16, 32, whatever is fine. I recommend using the smallest you can find that's 8 gigs or larger, simply because, it's wasted space, and it also makes the time to copy an image. If you're making a backup, a 16 gig image takes twice as long as a 8 gig image to back up to your computer, and by the way, it takes up twice as much space as well. So, 16 works fine, 32 works, anything 8 or bigger is okay, but the only downside is, like I said, it takes longer to copy it, and it takes more space if you back it up somewhere.
Well, that's, I hadn't thought about those things because that does make sense. You should, of course, back up your image. It makes it just easier to take a corrupted card and replace it quickly with the backed up image, not having to go through the installation or whatever process you use to build a new image. It isn't really a lengthy one, but still, it takes time, and sometimes you don't, you have to pull the paperwork out to remember the steps you have to go through and what you need to do. But if you have, if you got like a 32 gig card, the image, which is not the same as copying, but the image is on your computer in the backup, just as Bob said, it takes up 32 gigabytes because it saves the card in totality. So that's good advice. Appreciate that. So there you go. All right. Anybody have anything further on SD cards, images, backing up, things along those lines? We haven't talked about this for a while. It could be of further interest. We'll find out. Stations, please key up.
W6KD.
W6KD, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple more comments too. If you have an iffy power supply in your Raspberry Pi, it will show up. One of the ways that it can show up is corrupted SD cards. I used to have a lot of problems with SD cards getting scrambled, and a couple of things. A couple of things that I've done have really turned things around. In fact, I can't even remember the last time I had one of those things actually corrupted. I've got a couple of pies sitting in the back room that have been running for 3-4 months straight. The only reason that they haven't been running longer is because I went down to New Orleans to marry off one of my kids, and I turned everything off when we went down there. But it ran for months before I shut it down, and it's been running for months since. Anyway, using a high-quality power supply is paramount because the Raspberry Pi is not endowed with any kind of real power conditioning. It's got some basic protection circuitry against overload on the power input, but it'll go wonky on you if the voltage is low. And so if you're using a 500 milliamp bargain basement Chinese wall wart that you got from MCM or somewhere for $6 or whatever, if when that voltage starts fluctuating down around the low end, the Raspberry Pi can become unstable, and one of the ways that manifests that is by problems writing to the SD card, which will scramble it. The other thing that I've found is important is to get a clean break on the power when you shut your Pi down. Like, in fact, it's, going back to the 60 minutes of D-Star Basics. Let me change hands here. Anyway, Mike talked about, running the shutdown command. You want to shut the operating system down and not pull the power if you can help it while it's running, because if you happen to pull the power just at that right moment when it's in the middle of writing to your SD card, it can scramble it just by virtue of that alone. But the other thing is, and this kind of goes back to the same thing, is you don't want that Pi sitting there trying to run on an unstable voltage. So rather than unplugging your wall wart at the wall and allowing the voltage to taper slowly off, which most of them do due to the circuitry in the power supply, what I use is Apple iPad chargers. You can find them at just about any store. They're good to about 2.4 amps at 5 volts. They're fairly clean and stable. And anyway, it's a little yellow. It's a white. It's just a little white cube it's not really a cube. It's the bigger one for the iPad. and it plugs into the wall or into a power strip, and it's got a USB port on the back of it. And so what I do is disconnect the USB cable out of the back of the charger, and so that gives you a clean, instantaneous drop in the power, and you don't have the voltage slowly tapering off and putting the tie into a wonky state there for some period as the voltage slowly decays down. And anyway, since I started doing that, using high quality power supplies and making sure that I get a good clean breakage shutdown, I've been using the Micro Center Bargain Basement Class 10 SD cards almost exclusively now for several years with no problems at all. And these are the, $3, $4, $5 SD cards. They're nothing special. I do get the Class 10s because they're faster. The only reason I do that is because it makes it boot faster. But anyway, those are sort of my tricks to. And I ran an experiment a while back where I tried inducing the scrambling of cards, and I was able to reproduce some of that by unplugging the power supply from the wall so that the voltage slowly drops down. And I was able to produce, I don't remember the exact numbers, in like 150 tries, several of them resulted in scrambling the card, and none of them did reset. Anyway, none of them did when I shut the Pi down with a clean break. So that's that.
All righty, great advice as usual. Anyone have any questions about what you just heard? Or if you have a different view, please key up now. All righty, nothing seen or heard, so that's, hang on. Well, just for what it's worth, we're having difficulty with 310, and hopefully you've determined that if you're on 310. Of course, I don't know that you'd be hearing me now, and you've moved to one of the other reflectors, but the audio is not going there. 310 is down again, and I'm real sorry about that. And give us some work during the rest of the week, so let me make sure that everything else is up and running. That does appear to be the case. I would hate to think it's here, because if so, I'm going to have some trouble real quick. All right, so it's the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable. Let's get caught up, that is. If you've got something for the Roundtable, let's take you now, and that can be pretty much anything you like, but especially if you'd like to hear more about what other stations have helped us with, or if you've got questions about what you've heard, or if it's now sent you off into the deep end, and you need help clarifying something because, we've changed your mind from where it used to be. There's a simple answer. Please key up.
AA0R.
AA0RX. Go ahead.
AA0RX returning. But I don't have anything to add about the SD card issue, but I did have a kind of another topic, not a huge, vast topic, but just a quick reference topic. If this is the appropriate time, I'll ask it. If not, back over to you for a check on that verification there. This is AA0RX.
It is. It's time for it. Let's take it. Go ahead.
AA0RX, thank you. Well, my buddy Justin to the north there, when we were looking for this issue with his IP, I went to this Maryland D-Star website to help him. And anyway, I noticed on two things. One is on the D-Star info site, if you go to that thing that says check if you're registered, it may have shown up now, but it wasn't offered by Robin anymore at that time. This is about a day ago, yesterday in fact. And two, on the Maryland D-Star image, the Maryland D-Star site, they have the same thing. Check your D-Star call sign, see if it's registered. So I did that, and his call sign, his actual call sign is registered, but he has a club call, which is KI7W. You can see it on the reflector, the extra gateways in the dashboard on 2 Alpha. And in checking that, it said that it had a problem. And I'm not sophisticated enough to know if that is a problem. It looked like it was maybe double registered, the KI7W. And is that an issue? And do we have to worry so much about being registered now? I know that things are changing for D-Star, and you don't actually have to do that if you do a D-Star hotspot. And maybe that's too vague of a question, but anyway, does that make any sense to anybody in here? AA0RX.
Well, let's find out. First of all, one more time, because we've got some stations that are checking the registration. What is the club call, which would be odd for a station to use unless they're running a repeater that is having the registration trouble? Just give it to us again, please. Go ahead.
Roger that. It's KI7W. You can see it. I'm looking now at the reflector dashboard, and I'm not trying to single you out, Justin, but just trying to get clarification for you here, because I don't think you need to do that anymore. I know that used to be somewhat of an issue where if you had a club call sign, if you're going to set up a repeater, then that mattered. And but I don't think this is the case anymore. So I think as Justin is using his hotspot, he should stick with his call sign rather than this secondary club call sign. Anyway, I hope that doesn't make it too much more confusing.
Well, you've actually hit 3 issues. First of all, is it necessary to register to operate on X reflectors that is other than D+? Number 2, when do you need to use a club call, and why would you put it to use? I mean, there are uses for it, but it's primarily, of course, for repeaters. And also, if you are intending to run IRC-to-DB as a repeater and want to answer the call sign, which is independent. But in any event, so let's take them one step at a time. And there could be registration issues. So first of all, well, now I'm getting messages that I'm not being heard on 310 and on 555. And so I can't explain it. Anyway, I am getting text back that his registration is screwed up, and there is an issue with it, and the best advice off the air that I'm getting is to use his own call sign, which appears to be correctly registered, unless there is a real need for him to use a club call on a device. But based upon what you said, that isn't so. Now, with that having been said, let me see if there are any stations that disagree with what I just said concerning that club call who have looked it up and did so that weren't in direct communication with me. Stations, please key up.
W6KBM.
W6KD, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I've got you fine on 555 and on 002, so I'm not sure what the deal is there. You're coming. In fact, I'm talking on 555 primarily here. So you never dropped off. Registration's never required on an X reflector. Never has been, never will. On the D plus side, you have to have a valid registration to connect to a D plus reflector. One of the original REF reflectors. One of Robin's. And as far as a club call sign, the most common reason for somebody using that is if they want to be able to enable IRC DDB in their repeater, and a hotspot is really just a repeater that's on, it's running on a simplex frequency. The software is exactly the same. There are mountaintop boxes that use the G4KLX site or software at their site, and the difference is instead of going to a Raspberry Pi, instead of going to a DVAP or DV Mega, it's probably going to a different, a GMSK board to a couple of radios with a duplexer and all the other fun stuff that comes with a repeater. So in any event, that would be the only reason for using the club call sign that I can think of. I mean, you can do it, but you have to remember also that there are some settings in the IRC DDB gateway, in particular. I can't remember the name of the setting off the top of my head, but there is a setting that only allows the station. It only allows the radios using the same call sign as the hotspot's call sign to go through, and and I believe that is set by default in D-Star Commander because it's not intended to be used as repeater software. But in any event, there are some configuration issues if you're going to use a separate call sign for the hotspot and allow other users to come through as well. So when you start down that rabbit hole, you have to be a little more conversant with the software and the configuration. You can't just plunk up a out of the box hotspot and use it as a repeat reset. Anyway, and use it as a repeater for general use. There are some configuration issues, like I was just saying, that you have to look at, and really the only operational reason for using a club call sign, a separate call sign than your own, on something like that is the ability to use IRC DDB, because they won't even give you a login. You have to apply for and get a login from the IRC DDB guys, and they won't give you one for a user call sign. It has to be for a separate club call sign, because if you use call sign routing, and that's the only reason for using IRC DDB, the gateway has to have a different call sign than any user that's on the system. So I'm not sure I answered the question, but back to that W680.
Well, I think you did for the most part. Stations get confused sometimes when first setting up a hotspot, especially a DVAP dongle with Raspberry Pi, depending upon the software being used, because they see the IRC-DDB box or window, and they get nutted up because they want to enable it, not realizing the consequences or purpose of enabling. That box, along with 90% of the other check boxes, for example, with WinDV, are not required. You just put your call sign in there. You don't have to get a club call. Now, you can, but, you have to ask yourself, do you really want IRC-DDB enabled on your hotspot as a gateway when, for operational purposes, just as we, as a station to station, it's not required, not necessary. And you're not putting a repeater up. Number two, you should register with the D-Star administrator just so that you can access and operate on the REF, that is the D plus reflectors, which without registration, you cannot be on them. That is the totalitarian system that is there. There's a reason for it. But absent registration, I don't want to use the word limited to, you're actually glorified by being able to operate an XRF. Well, it's a wonderful thing without registration, but the reality is that a lot of people hang out on REF. You may want to go over there, and if so, you got to be registered. And I just got a note here that if your club call sign is seen in conjunction with a station license on the same device, they're going to hang up your registration. In any event, that club sign, it's pretty clear from all the stations that have responded to me. By the way, thank you very much for the text or the emails. Have confirmed that your call sign is the club call sign registration is messed up. So, absent a compelling need to unravel it all, dump it, put your call sign in there, your personal station license call sign, and away you go. Anyone have anything to add to this or any corrections before we hand it back to KB7CSW or AA0RX? Actually, stations, please key up. Nothing seen or heard, so, Gary, AA0RX, are you a sponge and were you able to absorb all that, or are you, ready to pull the plug? No, I'm just kidding. AA0RX, go ahead.
No, not at all. I really appreciate the knowledge base here, and I knew there was some kind of an issue with that, and but I wanted to, I'm glad that you guys spelled it out a little bit more. Hopefully Justin hasn't gone off to bed. I think he's still linked in here, and hopefully he has maybe a question about that, but hopefully he turn it over to him and see if he's got any questions about it. But I certainly questioned it, and I thought, you don't need to do that. And for some reason in his notes somewhere along the line, he felt he had to do that, and clarity is always better. Anyway, thank you very much. I kind of got that, and I think he can just proceed with making his call, his hotspot, his old call sign, and it should be that way. That's the way I've operated, and maybe he has an idea or something of why he originally set that up, or maybe something in the Maryland image or something. Anyway, I really appreciate the clarity on that, and hopefully Justin got something out of that as well. AA0RX, back to that.
All right, well, we'll just check with Justin real quick, but otherwise we're going to move on. KB7CSW, what say you?
Yeah, just following the instructions from the Maryland D-Star, that was one of the, in order to do the IRC DBB stuff, that was one of the steps in there to get that done. And that was an option that, I wanted to do with the routing and all of that stuff, so I went ahead and did it. Other than when you look it up there and there's the busted registration for the club call, everything else is still working just fine. Nothing else is wrong with the exception of me not being able to link to that reflector 720. And Gary and I just discovered the busted call sign for the club call on there a couple days ago, so that'll be one of my first steps, is figuring out why that's in there twice like that. I don't think it's supposed to be in there twice. But yeah, that'll be one of the first steps I get worked out, is that right there. And then I'll start hacking off on the next steps after that. But registration is the important part, so I'll start working with them and figuring out what's going on with it and try to get that rectified first. But yeah, the rest of it I pretty much understood, and a lot of it we covered over the last course of the couple of days that Gary and I have been talking and shooting ideas back and forth. There were a few new ones on here, and thank Bob for that. Yeah, but yeah, we covered some of them, so I don't know. I'll get the registration issue fixed first, and then go from there.
Well, I would be surprised if Maryland required you to get a club call. I haven't heard of that, and that wouldn't make any sense anyway. Bob explained it pretty well. It's related to your use of IRCDDB in the beyond. Well, I mean, you can use IRCDDB all you want, but in order to operate your hotspot as a full-blown IRCDDB gateway repeater, you would need a club call because they won't talk to you otherwise. And still, stations get the calls, and then they, later on realize, why did I do that? All right, very cool. Well, the registration needs to be fixed if you're going to keep the club call. You don't have to abandon it, but I wouldn't put it in the device. There's no purpose for it. So, well, let me say this. There is a purpose for it because there's a box that you can fill out, fill in on WinDB and other software, but it isn't applicable to day-to-day use of a hotspot. So, all right, let's see where we're at. We've been running now for, a little bit over, almost 4 hours, which is no big to do. The topics that I have that I would ordinarily start on are of such nature that it's probably not a good idea to start them late, but that's fine. We've got plenty of stuff to work on next time. That's how I look at it. I think it's probably prudent that I call to see if there's anyone dangling out there, if anyone else has a topic that they'd like to consider starting. If not, we'll pick it up on Thursday or a question. And I want to, again, apologize for XRF 310 being down. It's got internet problems that cannot be resolved on our side, and there's nothing we can do about it. So we're sorry about that, but it's completely out of our control. Otherwise, we'd fix it. But we can't. Otherwise, everything is working fine. Thankfully, we have redundant reflectors. That's the reason why we do. One of the reasons, at least. So, let's see where we're at. Stations, please key up. All right, living seen or heard. I have to tell you, I am really beat. And it's just one of those nights where I'm really starting to run out of gas fast. And I don't say that too often because we remain open as a net until all stations who wish to participate have had an opportunity to do so. And there seems to be a fairly organized crew of stations that, well, as I describe it often, sit on their hands until the net is about to conclude, and then they key up to talk, which is fine. Otherwise we wouldn't have an end to the net. But tonight, I got to tell you, I'm really dragging, and it's it's too late for me to start drinking coffee, and I'm going to beg your indulgence and run right to what we do towards the end of the net, and that is to see if there's any business, traffic, things that we should entertain, anything that needs to be corrected, any follow-up, suggestions for topics. Of course, you can always post them in the shout box or send me an email, n6hkh@me.com. But short of that, I'm probably going to bring this roundtable to a close before my eyes fall and I'm unable to read the screen. So, stations, please key up. KB7C, I'll tell you, it's bad here. I got to tell you, KB7CSW, go ahead.
Well, this one's easy, Mike. I don't need anything, and I'm not going to ask anybody any questions. Like I said, I've been listening to you guys for a long time, and first time I've actually been in here and participated, so just wanted to say one more time thanks for all you do with holding this net together and running it for all of these long hours. Appreciate the help tonight, and over to Bob. Thank you as well, Bob, for your assistance tonight. Got some notes down here and did learn a few things, so in my mind I learned something today, so it was a good day. So I will start applying and looking at some of these changes here and see where I can go. But anyway, with that, it's midnight here. Yep, almost midnight here, and I got some things to do in the morning, so I'm going to kindly check out and get my stuff put away here and get ready to drift off into La La Land. So thanks again, guys, and then also the ones that were listening but shooting you messages and all that stuff through email and messenger and all that. I appreciate the update from all those other folks. Everybody have a great rest of the evening and a great rest of the week. I'm out of here. KB7CSW, Justin in Wyoming, 7-3, and good night.
Thanks for the kind words, and you're welcome. And, this is one of the reasons why we started an hour earlier, so that things in theory would wrap up earlier, and people weren't, as I'm doing, which is unusual, nodding off. I've just been I don't know why, just tired today. And not drag this on into the wee hours because we started late. So in any event, I'm going to bring this edition of the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable to a close. And as always, I love to thank, and I need to thank those stations who participated in the roundtable, because without your participation, there would be no net, as well as the stations that are part of what I call the roundtable crew, and enable us to do all we do and keep things up and running, or at least try to, unless it's just way out of their control. We start at 7 p.m. Pacific every Thursday night. You know, there's going to be a time change. We're going to daylight savings time, but it doesn't really matter. Wherever you're at, if it's 7 o'clock Pacific, that's when we start. So, you may find us starting at, other than the 7 o'clock that you think we're on now, next Thursday. So, the shop box will be cleaned up and cleared out, really, and then put into the shop box history. So if you want to look there for something of interest, it'll be in the shop box history, usually within 15 minutes or so of the close of the net. The podcast is usually up by noon of the day following tonight. It's Thursday still, so tomorrow being Friday, by noon it's up, usually much earlier. Most podcast apps will download the shout box for you as part of the podcast, so it makes it a lot easier for everyone. And there's always Broadcastify, and for that matter, it gets taped a lot. So however you listen to us, whether you're able to participate or not, I'm really losing it. I really appreciate it. I got to end this. Everyone, thanks for putting up with me and everything that's gone good and bad. And I hope to see you guys next Thursday. Have a great weekend. N6HKH is not only good night, but gone. We'll talk to you on D-Star. Come back to the Constellation tomorrow. N6HKH.